testing. But that's just me. That's not the desktop. Why is the desktop not working? Let me see. Okay, let me put on the chat. I think you can hear me now. I mean, I think the chat can hear me, but I'll leave be. Yeah. A minute. So, okay, now I unmuted, so I need to turn this down. Um, can you talk? I- what do are is this? How do you I didn't even ask. You go is you say your name Cherney or Ishmael or which however Isle is good. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, they can't hear you. That's what I thought. They can hear me, but not you. So let me see here. Good thing we started early. I can't. Let's let's see. Why can't they audio input properties? Okay. Try talking now. Hmm. Oh no, it's not working. Hmm. Why is it not window capture properties? So this is just a video. Yeah, yep, because they're picking up my microphone, but they're not picking up audio from you. They only. I'm trying to see how can I tell the OBS to pick up audio from the computer. How did I used to do that? Um, input. Let's see. I gotta put another audio. Output. Okay. Let me see. now. Can you talk now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So, can you hear me, guys?
I think I might have fixed it.
Okay. But I'm still waiting for the chat to respond.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a good thing we started earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Great.
All right.
Okay, finally.
Now I can actually make the window do something like that.
Perfect.
Okay. So hello, Nadia. Hello, Gloff. And hello,
Emil?
Emil. Yeah. Cool. And I guess we'll get started at 1 o'clock, which is
Yep. In 10
8 minutes from
minutes?
now.
Yep.
Okay. And I have the book. I was just I see it in reverse, but I have the hard copy book, so I was just looking over it while we
Okay.
wait. Real quick. Yeah, but feel free. Anybody can chat current if you want to do that. Uh, but we're just gonna let me actually type it in.
Yeah.
We will get started at well, 1 p.m. North American Central Time. Can I pin? Oh, I can't. Awesome. Get ready. Okay. Still in the hotel. Um, Between traveling here, but it looks like they got good internet. They have a faster version of the internet that I could have paid for, but I'm like, this one looks fine, and it looks like it's fine. So I think we're good.
Yep. We are.
It's the beginning part. more minutes. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, cool. Okay, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Cool. Number six. Okay. 2 more minutes. Okay. Yep. So if anybody just caught popped on, we will get started in yeah, on the hour. Just so you don't know, you don't think we're just gonna be just silent the whole time. We're just waiting, just to be fair for the
We're waiting
peeps.
for everybody to come, and then we will start.
Yeah. Hello, Michelle Foster. Good afternoon. Yeah, it's afternoon for
Hi.
me too, but for other people it
Yeah,
might
it's
not be.
basically night over.
Okay.
It's basically night over here.
Okay. Yeah, so we will go ahead and get started here. Thanks for those who popped on. Welcome to the Black Ponder. My name is Neil Trotter. I'm the host of the program, and today we have a guest. Hey, what did you say? What was your nickname? Isle, or I'm sorry,
Ismail. Ismail.
Ishmael. Well, I
You
can
just say
remember that.
Ismail.
Ishmael, which is not like the proper French pronunciation, but I don't know French, so Ishmael is very graceful in letting me, say that. That's fine. Okay, so hello, Selena Sardoth Sardothian, and yeah, I'm very bad at pronunciation myself, so I'm probably gonna butcher the names in the chat, which I always do in these live streams. But forgive me. So it's cool because we're on the stream at a different time than I usually do it, so maybe it'll allow some people more opportunity to come. I'm not sure. But yeah, so yeah, I'll just give a little background about first about what this live stream is about. It's going to be ongoing discussion about this book. I don't know, you might be seeing it in reverse or not. The ethical slut. It seems reverse in my video, but maybe not yours. Uh, yeah, I did a video about that, and then in the comments section, Ishmael commented, and we just had a long ass discussion. I don't know. I was like, sometimes I'll do that. There's other times I'll do that. We'll just have like 50, 60 posts just going back and forth. It was pretty much a debate. So Ishmael contacted me and said, "Hey, you want to do like a debate, like in person, like just talking to each other instead of just the comments?" And I'm like, "Sure, that'll be fun. And let's make it a live stream and invite some other people if they want to, watch and comment in real time. That'll be cool." And so here we are. Ed, would you like to say anything in additional in terms of the context?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for accepting this. I'm really glad that we get to do this. I also like to thank well the people who are joining us in the chat, and and yeah, I mean, I was really looking forward to this event. I even produced two videos on my own on the book in which I recreate the argument that the book is laying out, and then in the second video I explained the the disagreements that I had with it, particularly on the issue of jealousy. And so we're here to discuss it and see what we can come up with.
Hmm.
So here we are.
Cool. Uh, yeah, it's so. Maybe you've never seen the videos before. The Ethical Slut is
Yeah.
a book about it's known, it's popular for being a book about polyamory. Having multiple love partners is the word that it means. But I think it's more than that. It's really it's an examination of best practices for loving somebody. I think, and yeah. So we can further discuss that. I was talking to my wife, so I'll give you some more background, which I didn't do in the other video. Because I was trying to like I didn't know if she wanted me to share, but she's like, oh, it's cool. So I'm married, right? But my wife is she's polyamorous, and I was concerned. I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't say that because she might not want her business aired out. But she's like, no, I don't care. And so I have experience like not just theoretical, like I'm in a poly open marriage as well now. When I first met her, before we got married, she was polyamorous before. Now I had this whole back in the day, before I met her, I kind of had this whole thing about me where I was like, I'm never gonna get married. I was doing like the friends with benefits thing. I never had a long term serious relationship, romantic relationship, because I just that's kind of how I rolled back in those days. I was kind of like the one night stand, the short term love affairs, the friends with benefits. I was that kind of guy, which is if you live like that, that's fine. I mean, I wasn't hurting nobody. I wasn't I wasn't like a home wrecker. So when I met her, she already had a boyfriend already, and she said, "Oh, I'm polyamorous, so you should take that in consideration." And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, I didn't really think about it too deeply." I was like, "Oh, you're just doing what I'm doing," like because I was dating multiple people too, like, but it wasn't like serious, right? It was like, it was like friendship. It wasn't romantically serious. So it didn't bother me. I'm like, oh, you got a boyfriend? That's fine. That's cool. I date all types of other people. It's all good. But then I started like really getting to know her, and then she started teaching me more about like, well, what you do, that's not what polyamory is. Right? Polyamory is actually getting serious with more people about like love, right? It's not just these flings that you do. And I was like, I think maybe that's what I'm missing in my life. Now, to this day, I've not yet been in another romantic relationship with somebody else other than my wife. Now, my wife has been in. She's dated outside the marriage, but and I've already accepted those terms, and it doesn't bother me as much because I'm used to it. I've kind of like struggled a little bit just because the social programming. I had to like wrestle with that, I'd experienced jealousy, right? But then I had to like take a step back, and that's why I'm bringing this up because I would experience these emotions when she was going out with some other people. And I'm like, this is weird because when I was not married to her and she was going out with other people, I was fine. But because I'm married, now I feel weird. Like, yeah, what's going on here? Like, and so it really does force you to be like, what does love mean? And like, is this like me having this warped idea of I'm supposed to be possessing her and she's like only belongs to me, or like what's going on? I had to really think about these things. And so yeah, I want to give that context, that back, and you share more about the Black Ponder. I'm usually open. I just when I did the video, I was like, I don't know, maybe she might not be comfortable with me sharing that. But then I talked to her, and she's like, oh, I don't care. so, so that's cool. But I want to share this because I want the people to know, like, jealousy is the thing that I've experienced too, and but I've kind of like um, worked through it the way the book talks about it. Um,
Hmm.
and I found like actually, like, is this really a thing I should do? So I mean that's my kind of experience that we can kind of use as background information. But of course, Ismail, if you want to talk about your disagreements or
Yeah,
your ideas as well.
yeah. Uh, well, I can't really say that I come from a background that is similar to yours. I mean, I've never been in a polyamorous relationship, but I have nothing against it. I mean, I can be in one, just that the opportunity never came. I mean, I live in Tunisia, and Tunisia is kind of a big conservative country, so you wouldn't find a lot of polyamorous people. Um, but yeah, like I said, I have nothing against it. As a matter of fact, I do believe that naturally we're more inclined to be polyamorous and polygamous. Even in my first video about the book, I even suggested another book that looks at polygamy from an evolutionary perspective, so it's more scientifically based. Um, and and yeah, so I am absolutely for polyamory and for polygamy. My only concern with the book was the way it argues for it, because my critique basically stems is based on 2 points. The first point was uh, their take on jealousy. um, I felt like they were talking about jealousy exactly the same way Stoics would talk about anger. Uh, and that was the first point of my critique. And so I was like, well, if we find some flaws in how the Stoics talk about anger, well, we would expect to find the same flaws in how the authors of the Ethical Slot talk about jealousy. And I kind of have to say that, yeah, they kind of have the same flaws. That's the first problem that I had with the book. And the second one is uh, well, when they talk about this thing, scarcity economics, they basically say that the reason why we are not very open to ethical slaughter is because we grow up with the belief that there is not enough love for everybody. So if I receive affection, that that affection must be subtracted from someone else. Like, or if I give affection to someone else other than my partner, it means that I'm giving less to my partner. And my problem with this is that you can actually justify uh, monogamy, like the kind of monogamy that they're criticizing, which is the, when monogamy is presented as the only moral way for you to have a relationship. That's what they are criticizing. But the scarcity economics myth can actually serve that sort of monogamy. It can actually be a basis to argue for monogamy as the only valid and moral kind of relationship that you can have. And so that was basically my critique. First of all, uh, they see jealousy in the same way as the Stoics look at anger. There are flaws with the way for Stoics look at anger, so they also have the same flaws regarding jealousy. And the second one is, well, their argument about love should be abundant. I mean, love is abundant. Love is exists in abundance, and so there is no reason why we would feel jealous. There is no reason why we would feel that something is being taken away from us. I argue, however, that, well, if you live in a state of abundance, you can as much justify the hardcore monogamy than the polygamous model. Why? Because in when you have an abundance, well, it kind of becomes difficult to justify why you would need more than what you already have, because the logic that follows from this is that you would have plenty enough with just your partner. Why would you need to go look for more? Okay, there's already plenty in your relationship, and so it can be seen like an ethical slut is just greedy, just someone who wants more when there is already more enough around. So that can justify monogamy, and it can even give monogamy uh, the the moral upper hand, because now monogamous people would be seen as they're the ones who control their emotions, they're the ones who control their desires, they're the ones uh, who can actually do the things that the ethical slut wants to do in terms of inner peace and control of emotions, uh, etc. So that's basically my critique. But
Hmm.
again, I have nothing against polygamy, and more of it would be great for everybody.
Hmm. Cool. Well, hello, Lionel Daniel. Welcome.
Hello, hi Lionel.
Uh, yeah, so, okay, let's go to the first thing. Um, the Stoics, there's a comparison between Stoics' view of anger and these authors' views of jealousy. Yeah, unfortunately, like it's funny because my wife is actually really into Stoicism. I'm not so much because there are some
No
things I
surprise.
disagree with about Stoicism. Although I'm that kind of person. I guess you call it an eclectic or something. I'm like one of those people who are like you don't have to hardcore be into every. You kind of just take the good stuff from everything and kind of meld it. So there's a lot of good stuff about Stoicism, but I don't think you need to accept Stoicism wholesale to like reap the benefits of Stoicism. So I just say that because I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Stoicism. All I've read Marcus Aurelius, and I did a video on him. Although what I've been told is, if you want to know Stoicism, like Marcus Aurelius is not. That's the
Yeah.
least amount of Stoicism you're gonna get because he has like the least amount of text, and and a lot of noobs in Stoicism kind of cling toward him, and if you want to get so all that's to say, I'm no authority to Stoicism, but all I can know is what these authors are saying about jealousy and how they define jealousy. And so like one of the things I wanted to focus on is like how do they define jealousy? And I think maybe we might be
Mhm.
mixing their definition up. So they talk about jealousy as like it's an umbrella word that covers a wide range of emotions that we might feel when our partners make sexual connection with somebody else. And then I think it's even further. It may be that, and I'm just reading the book here. It may be that this is the only real definition of jealousy. It's the experience of projecting one's uncomfortable feelings onto one's partner. Like, kind of like projecting your insecurities onto somebody else. And that's really like kind of how they define jealousy. I think the book it says like, well, jealousy is this so it's an engrossing thing that is kind of hard to define. And but then if you were to define it, it's all these emotions that are you projecting your what is it your emotions onto somebody else, your uncomfortable feelings. And I remember when I saw your video, you were talking about how like there's many reasons why you can be justified. Like what if a sibling, and I think you even mentioned that in the chat, the sibling sees being it's somebody's favorite, the parent is favoriting one sibling, but the other sibling is not getting the attention that they should get, and they feel like, well, that's messed up, right? And so to me, like, well, that's not that's not jealousy. Like that's just like you are rightfully acknowledging an inequity, and then you go further in the video. You talk about how like, well, what about people who are wrong social when you have all these social inequities, like, it should like a black person who's discriminated against and they see white people getting what they deserve to get of black people, and is that jealous? Like that should justify jealousy. But I would argue like, well, that's not jealousy. That's you seeing like, oh, this is an inequitable situation, and it's like not only am I getting harmed, it's like society is getting harmed. And jealousy, I think it's like the way that, and so I think what this book really does excel at is really defining jealousy. Whereas yeah, a lot of us think like, what is jealousy? Oh, jealousy is when you like you feel wronged, and like you feel upset about being wronged, or like you see you're being treated unfairly. And but that's not what jealousy is as the book defines it. And I think that's actually a more accurate version. Jealousy is like, okay, let's say your relationship, your partner does something bad to you, and then you start being like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna start doing bad things to her. Like I'm gonna start manipulating her, and I'm gonna like, oh, I'm gonna go out in secret and date somebody else and not tell her about it, and then and then so and what's happening there, like you're beginning to like you feel harmed, and you're starting to have these uncomfortable, now you're just projecting instead of just simply saying like, I need to like for her to acknowledge, or for him to acknowledge, or they to acknowledge like, I feel hurt right now, and let's talk of this over, and maybe even like this isn't gonna work. Right. So I think that would be my first kind of to address that critique, is like, I think maybe you are not picking up on how the book defines jealousy.
All right. Okay. Well, so to respond, um, so yeah, you're right in saying that the book defines jealousy in a certain way, and it defined it as indeed projecting your insecurities on other people. Um, the problem is that's exactly, and to go back to the Stoics, that's exactly how they defined anger. That anger is just that is just projecting your insecurities, your false beliefs onto a situation or onto someone else.
Hmm.
And to say that that's the more accurate definition for anger, for example, well, that's just wrong. We know that that's not the accurate the accurate definition for anger. Anger is not just you projecting your emotions. It can be that, but it can be not that at all. And so what I think the authors are doing is that they are taking a very narrow, and also at the same time, I think it's a very broad definition of jealousy, and they say, well, that's what jealousy is. You cannot disagree with it. It is just projection. No matter what contexts or conditions jealousy is manifesting itself, it's jealousy. It is the same jealousy that we're talking about in the book. And if it's not, well, we are going to we'll just say, well, that's something else. That's not jealousy. Like with the examples that you gave, a sibling can feel jealous towards another sibling because the parents are cheating. Uh, well, it's going to depend on who is going to judge this situation. I think if it is the ethical slot is going to say, yeah, that's jealousy and that's bad. You shouldn't be doing that. Uh,
Yeah, I
Further,
disagree with
if
that. I don't think the authors would say that. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
given the definition that they gave, there's nothing that prevents them from doing that. There's nothing that prevents them. I mean, logically speaking, thanks to their own definition of what jealousy is, nothing
Hmm.
prevents them from doing that. I mean, for example, they gave that example of when you take someone to the movies, for example, like you had your partner and you know that your partner wanted to see uh, a specific movie and you go watch that movie with someone else. And so, of course, the partner is going to be mad at that. It's in my video. I call that a big move. I mean, that is kind of a big move, and the book makes it clear that you cannot hold accountable the ethical slot for doing any wrong in that situation.
Oh
The only
yeah.
thing that the ethical slot will do is just help you cope with the negative emotions, but at no point he or she will admit that they did something wrong by taking the other person to the movie instead of you. And this is the kind of problem that I have with this, is that anything that can criticize the choices of an ethical slot can easily be defined as jealousy, and so it is dismissed. And now the ethical slot is just going to be like, but listen, uh, let's talk about it. Let's go through the emotions, but you have to understand, I'm not going to admit that I did something wrong. You see my point?
Well, I don't know. So I think also we have to like you know it, so there's the jealousy aspect, but we also have to take into account like all the rest of what the book is saying. Like another so you can't I would argue you can't just take the jealousy definition in isolation with you have to also consider the other parts of the book and how it relates to jealousy. Because there, I mean, another big chapter in the book is boundaries, right? And so you in a relationship you establish boundaries, right? So you know you're in a let's say like you get harmed, the person harms you, and you may experience emotions of jealousy, and so now the book advocates like, okay, you need to have open communication with like let that example, like you took that person you're seeing to the movies. I wanted to see that with you. Why did you do that? It's like, well, uh, the person might say whatever to justify, and then now the book talks about how, well, you got to like set down your boundaries and say like, okay, there's certain things in the relationship that I need that you know that I need in this relationship, right? And the book, I think, does advocate toward like if you're not like acknowledging the individual's, your partner's, love partner's boundaries, and like, the things that you set up to, like, okay, these are our expectations, then I think like, then you, I think the book does argue like, well, you are causing harm in that situation if you're just, doing things that hurt your partner, which is basically like you're going over their boundaries, right? Which, the book talks about is like, that is wrong, right? And so how do you know that you're going over your boundaries? That open communication. But then it even talks about like jealousy can open that up, where it's like it's a window where I think there's a part where it talks about how jealousy is like a way for you to acknowledge like you're hurt, which is, as it's saying, you're disempowering your jealousy. Like jealousy is, it's not a cancer; it's a part of you. So it's a way that you express fear and hurt. So it's kind of like it's communicating to you, right? And it's not, and so it's not all bad. Like jealousy is not bad. It's just, it's only bad when jealousy is like, when you allow jealousy to just go haywire. Kind of like the Stoics with anger is like, but I'm not too familiar with anger. But anger, when you just let it just go without like any type of like intervention or like thought you could use anger to like fuel you to do righteous things, right? But now it's no longer just anger. You're using like logic and reasoning, and you're using you're using all types of qualities to help you. And anger can be the fuel for that. But if you just say like, I'm just gonna be angry and that's it, like, okay, that's bad. I think it's the same with the jealousy. Is like jealousy can help you, you could help you like acknowledge like, okay, what actually makes me hurt? What how am I getting harmed, like or like, why do I feel harmed, what's going on in me? And then that allows you like, okay, I need to talk about this to my partner. And now your partner has to acknowledge those feelings, right? And if they're like refuse to acknowledge those feelings, if it's like, oh, we're just going to dismiss this, then that, I think the book does say like, that's wrong, right? That's how I see it.
Okay. Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, about the Stoics. The Stoics, they didn't see anger as, something that you have to control to a certain extent. For the Stoics, anger is bad whatsoever, even if it's mild. Uh,
Okay.
they are actually pretty radical about this. Other philosophers disagreed with that, like for example Aristotle. Aristotle thought that anger is totally justified and can be okay as long as it doesn't go haywire, and you don't lose your sense of self in the anger, and you can still use your reason to channel that anger. The Stoics, uh, the Stoics specifically refuted that. Like they refuted the Aristotelian model, saying that, listen, man, if you can hold your control, then you're not anger. That is something else.
Okay.
Okay, like whatever it is that you're experiencing, if you can still control yourself, that is not anger. So again, you see, very narrow, but at the same time, it's a very broad definition of anger that they have. So yeah, so anger always discredits you from the point of view of the Stoics. Now, to go back to your point about setting boundaries and all of that, and jealousy can be a way of an open door towards communication. Um, they're right about that. The problem is that when jealousy is going to communicate something to you, obviously, it is going to communicate something to you about you and only you. It will not, in their worldview, it's not going to communicate anything about the situation outside of you, about your relationship, about what just happened. Okay, and this is the problem. I mean, yeah, the ethical self has to acknowledge your feelings, but that's all that she has or he has to acknowledge. Like if you say, well, I am experiencing these feelings because of the thing that you did, and that thing is wrong, That's game over. You know, the model in ethical thought about jealousy regard jealousy as just something that tells you something about you, not about what I did, not about the nature of our relationship, not about my actions. It's just about what is in your head.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah, I
and that's
guess.
and that's and that's the problem.
Oh, okay, you see that as a problem because the book like uses all types of other mechanisms to address outside issues. You know, boundaries, consent. You know, it even talks about conflict and how to deal with conflict. I guess you're just like, but what about jealousy? So I guess, yeah, I guess I think that's not that problem because there's the ethical slut. The book is saying like, okay, like if you set boundaries, and if your partner doesn't acknowledge the boundaries, then you that's bad, right? Or like they talk about conflict and how like some conflict is good. Sometimes you gotta fight it out, in a meaningful way. And if they're not willing to do that, then that's bad. That they acknowledge that, or consent is another thing where it's like they put if they're violating your consent, that obviously you got to bounce. Like, and so I think there are many other parts like that address like the outside issue. But I guess I would agree with the authors and say like, is jealousy like productive mechanism to address like wrongs that are happening to you outside the situation? Like the other person is harming you. Is jealousy the way for you to the most productive way for you to deal with that? And I would agree, like, no, like jealousy only leads to, like, if you really think about it, bitterness. Like if you just take a step back and be like, okay, this person is wronging me, like that's not jealousy, that's just like this person's harming me, so I need to like get out of this relationship, and they are wrong. Right? But you're not being jealous at that point, you're just saying like, I need to take care of myself, right? So I don't know, that's not yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we're at a point where it's like you feel like that kind of. But I guess I like to push back and say like, so within the ethical slut philosophy, if we the book, the philosophy, like there are the authors do provide tools for you to like acknowledge like the other person is harming you, right? Uh, when that actually does happen, and but they just say jealousy is not one of those tools, and I just don't see a problem with that. I don't know.
Okay, so again, like I said in my first video, I'm not going to talk about the other tools that they offer because I think that they are great.
Okay.
I have no disagreement whatsoever with almost everything everything else except this issue with jealousy.
Mm,
And the problem is that if you don't think that jealousy can also be like I said, a way for you to interact, to react to an actual injustice that happened. I mean, it can be mild or it can be big, doesn't matter. But if your jealousy is a way of reacting to an injustice, it means that, well, jealousy reveals something about reality. It's not just projection. You're not in the wrong when you are experiencing jealousy. I mean, you can be. I mean, of course, there are many, many, many examples of where jealousy fits that definition.
mm-hmm.
But I think when you rule it out, and when you rule it out like this radically, that any manifestation of jealousy uh, can only be dealt with through coping instead of fixing a situation. And by the way, the book goes, um, I mean, there are many sections where the authors specifically said that, I mean, when it comes to jealousy, there is nothing to be fixed. Like they wrote it many times. When it comes to jealousy, there's nothing to be fixed. So jealousy
Yeah.
cannot reveal that there is a problem outside of yourself. It is only in you, nothing
Mm-hmm.
more. And so, as long as if you are in a relationship, and in that relationship, something happens in that relationship, and the other person did something that well can be qualified as an injustice. Well, if they don't acknowledge that they did something wrong, well, all the other tricks that the book is giving is going to be seen as a way to get away with something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I don't really think that you can acknowledge that you did something wrong if uh, if your first premise about this particular emotion that we feel that we can feel all the time. I mean, randomly all the time. Uh, I don't think that would work if your premise is jealousy is just a defense mechanism. That is just a projection, and it reveals nothing about the reality of the situation.
Mm-mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I mean, it kind of boils down to just a matter of perception at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can always play that in all the ways that you want. You can always say to the other person that they misunderstood, that they interpreted the things wrong, that they perceived the things in the wrong way, when sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're just right. Like when for example, you again, let's take the siblings for example. When the brother is jealous of the other, well, the mother or the father can be like, well, you misunderstood what we did. We still love you in the same way, etc., etc. But the sibling is like, yeah, but even with that, you still gave him more for no
Mm-hmm.
reason,
Right. Right.
you know. So that's uh, that's the issue.
Okay. And I'd just like to say hello to Tom here in the chat. They're saying, "Bro, is it emotional or are they just temporary
My
feelings?"
emotions.
Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but that's cool. It is Saeed Afshan. Hello. I always used to project my emotions on my girlfriend whenever I used to hear about some male friends, and it started to get toxic. And ironically, I realized it when she was gone forever. Okay. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge the chat. Um, yeah, yeah. So I guess to respond to what Ishmael is saying with, yeah, I guess first of all, I don't think like the book is saying like it doesn't flat out dismiss jealousy. Like it does say like jealousy is a window into you. So it's more like a window, and yeah, it's more like a tool, or like not even a tool. Yeah, it's like a lens, right? And then I would say like a projection, just because something's a projection doesn't make it not reality. Like our perceptions, there are multiple perceptions, and that's a huge theme in the Black Ponder. Like, we all, how do we interpret the world through perceptions that are mixed matched, and it's rare that we work with like this is absolutely this is absolutely that. So like, yeah, your projections and like the window into you, like that is a reality. Like everybody has a reality in themselves, which is valid, right? uh, and so that's important. Like, so when we talk about jealousy, it's like, and in terms of they're talking about like you're looking within yourself, to see what's going on in you and how, and there is like what goes on within you is a direct result of how what's going on outside, because what's going on in you, that's how you're going to act outside. So projections are reality, I would argue. That's You're just talking about reality as much as the world as it is, which is what even is that, right? That's ultimately a projection. I mean, we could talk about absolutes, because I mean there are some like absolutes, like injustice, inequity, that's wrong. And so, like, you bring up again with the siblings, is like, yeah. And so, like, I would again go and say, like, at first the sibling is jealous, has feelings of jealousy, right? And he says, "Hey, mom, dad, you're not treating me fairly." And then the mom and dad are like, what are you talking about? We're just because we're giving this person more attention doesn't mean we're treating you unfairly. But then the child is still like saying, like, no, actually you are treating me unfairly. And so, to me, like, at that point, you're no longer jealous. Like, like, the child has rised beyond jealousy. They're just like stating a matter of fact, right? So, I guess for me, like, that example doesn't apply to what we're talking, because the sibling is no longer jealous. They're just saying, like, look, like, this is not fair, period. Like, and they might still be feeling jealous, but out, beyond that, they're like just stating a fact. Now, you
Okay.
know, I, I guess they may be using their jealousy to 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 realize that fact. I don't know, but whether or not they're doing that, they're just like, what, I don't see that as like jealousy. I just see that as like, you've hurt me, or like, you're treating me unfairly, like, and it doesn't matter, like, and so you're saying, like, well, the authors would not say that they'd say that that is still is like jealousy. But I guess the way I read the book is, I don't think the authors would interpret that as like jealousy. They would say, like, clearly the parents are doing all the other things that the book is saying you shouldn't do, that you are aligned with. And they would say, like, this doesn't fall in the realm of jealousy, what we're talking about. That's how I think about it.
All right. Well, would you say the same if the kid wasn't jealous but was angry?
Yeah, like, well, so let's say, like, the kid was very angry, like, and started like throwing stuff around, and like really got upset, and like, maybe start breaking stuff, or like started shouting bad words, because they felt harmed, right? So, to me, I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's justifiable. Like, I mean, it makes sense that the kid. But what I guess the argument, then you have to realize, like, is this really productive? Is the kid like blowing up like this? No, it's valid, right? Like, makes sense. Like, a reasonable person, their emotions are gonna. But like, now, are the parents going to be like, oh, okay? A lot of parents at that point would push even harder, be like, oh, okay, you're gonna act like that, and then we're really gonna, like, not, you go to your room or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, so the thing is, like, just like, anger, I mean, just like jealousy, it's like, it doesn't lead to anywhere useful, right? You have to, like, start going outside of jealousy or anger to, like, to, like, start being productive with the situation. Now, a child can only do so much, right? But I mean, but anger is not going to help really the child, unfortunately. It's really
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So again, I think you still fall in the same trap, because if that works for jealousy and for anger, it would also work for any other kind of emotion, whether negative or positive. And
hmm
that means that whenever someone has a composure, or is still capable of just stating facts without going bananas, uh, you are going to commit to a worldview where you attribute that not to the emotions, but to the rational side of the individual. And then you're going to have a problem with justifying the cause of the emotion. It's like, emotion, they just come come up randomly, or only through your perception. But then if you sit down and you think about the situation, all of that, ultimately you are taken away from those emotions, or you are transcending them in some way. And I don't see why we have to commit to such a worldview. Uh, and also, you when you talked about anger, the kid being angry, uh, I think it is significant that you chose to represent it as a kid breaking things. Uh, you, I think it's significant uh, that you didn't think of some mild forms of anger, but you went straight away to the breaking and the violence and all of that. And I think you are doing the same thing with jealousy. That whenever jealousy happens, you say that it's not productive because the only way we think about jealousy, or at least the authors think about jealousy, is that jealousy is this some kind of um, extremely brutal and uncontrollable emotion in itself. Just like the Stoics thought about anger. Seneca, for example, when he talks about anger, he uses the term ira. Ira, it's Latin, and ira is actually a very strong form of anger. It's when the whole face turns red and you are in a mode of fight or flight. You know, and I don't think that we have to look at jealousy in the same way. I don't think that we have to look at jealousy only through lenses of it's not going to be productive because it's going to lead you to an uncontrollable violence or something like that. Uh, Again, I think this is a very narrow and broad at the same time definition of jealousy. Like you narrow it to just one thing, projection, violence, uncontrollable rage, or whatever. And at the same time, it's very broad because there are so many things that are not that, but because of that narrow definition, well, you kind of put them in the same bag. I mean, there are other forms of jealousy that are very mild, and I mean, whenever they manifest themselves, you either say, well, I'm going to dismiss them because that's jealousy, or I'm just going to say, well, that's not jealousy, that's something else. And I think that fails to acknowledge the feelings of the individual. I mean, just saying to someone, I acknowledge your feelings, uh, but at the same time, you refuse to compromise, for example, your freedom. It's something that Dossi, for example, one of the authors, Dossi said it plainly that she is not willing to compromise her freedom no matter what. And so I think that if you start dealing with jealousy in that way, that there is no way for you to compromise your freedom, it means that you will never acknowledge that you did something wrong. Because I mean, why would you compromise your freedom if you didn't something wrong, right? So
Mm.
yeah, so anything that would stem from jealousy or manifest itself as jealousy, even if I tell you, yeah, I mean, let's talk about it, let's communicate and all of that. The fact that I'm I may have to compromise my freedom because I did something wrong, that's out of the table. And so I don't think that is a fair communication. I mean, if you start like that, if you start with never having to compromise, I don't think that's a fair communication.
Yeah, I just don't think that's what they're saying. But yeah, but it's kind of hard because it's like clearly they talk about communication in the book and setting boundaries, but then you're saying like, well, I'm not talking about that. You agree with that, but so there. I mean, the book does say you set communication and boundaries they're crossed, and so that's a freedom that's restricted at that point. But you're saying like, well, but if it's jealousy, then all that goes out the window. But I don't think they're saying that. But let me go to some of the chats here. Brian Chow
Yeah.
says, "Hello, Brian. Isn't the entire isn't the issue that the emotions are internal, and while the situation is unjust, you have control over your emotions, and that jealousy does nothing to change the situation? I really agree with the point about the difference between jealousy and speaking the truth." Yeah, that's kind of where I'm headed. But then we have Selena Sardothi. Oh, yeah, you were here before. Hello, are you saying you guys should make more content together? Yeah, I'm open to more collaborations. That'll be cool.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let's use an example because um, yeah, I just feel like yeah, it's just interesting because you're saying like um, you said it was interesting for me when I went to the kid with anger. Um, I go to the extreme example, and then so you're saying then with the jealous, it's always the extreme. But I don't know. I just think like yeah, I'm gonna go to the because that's where emotions lead you toward if you don't manage them, right? If you unmanage emotions, like emotions just unmanaged, they're gonna eventually lead toward that. So I guess my example is okay. When is there a situation when you can use jealousy to do good? Like, because I'm at a loss. Like, you could
Okay.
present me
I mean,
something.
a very simple. Yeah. I mean, a very simple simple situation would be for example being willing to compromise your freedom, for example. You know, because I mean when you when you walk into into the communication, I think that both parties shouldn't have some things that they will be like I'm not going to gamble on those things, especially if that thing can create a problem. You know, like for example, when you say that I'm not going to compromise my freedom no matter what, that means that you are never. I mean, even though the authors do not say that, uh, it's one of the conclusions that you can derive from their writings. All right. Uh, if you say that I am not willing to compromise my freedom no matter what before the communication even starts, that means that you will never acknowledge that you did something wrong. Because again, why would you compromise your freedom if you did nothing wrong? And I mean to accept to accept to compromise our freedom in some way, it has to come from a realization that well, I cannot do that thing because obviously when I do that thing, it hurts someone for for good reason, for justified reason. You know, I'm not talking about when you do something and someone gets hurt for no reason whatsoever. I mean, in those situations, I totally agree with the authors that many times, yes, sometimes someone gets angry or sad or whatever, and like the author says, sometimes there is no villain. Sometimes there is pain, but there is no villain. I would agree that there are a lot of situations like that, but I think there are also a lot of situations where there is a villain. And if you never, if you start by saying you would never compromise your freedom, it means that no matter what situation you are in, no matter what hurt or pain there would never be a villain.
Right.
You know, and so it's yeah, it's kind of a get of a get out of jail card like you that you can throw all the time. So
Hmm.
that's the issue that I have with this.
Where are they
You
saying
know,
that you can't compromise?
oh,
Where?
Dossi actually has that sentence. I think it was
Oh, okay.
in when she was talking about her relationship with an ex.
Okay.
Uh, it's in one of those indexes at the end of some chapters when she was talking about how this ex was always getting jealous and all of that, and even though she tried to get into the lifestyle of sluthood, at the end it didn't work because, and Dossi says this, Dossi was unwilling to compromise her freedom.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this actually written, and I actually showed the quote in my videos when I talked about this issue. That you are never willing to compromise, no matter what.
Yeah, I think
You
I
know,
remember that. Uh,
yeah. I mean, that's kind of a problem, isn't it? Even though she doesn't say the critique that I'm laying here, it actually leads to that. You know, I mean, logically, that's a very valid conclusion to draw.
Well, I'm trying to like. Okay, so now I'm thinking about my relationship, and I'm thinking like,
Please, no, please, no, not that.
well,
I
just as
don't, I don't, I don't want to.
don't want too in my too much information. Uh, but no anecdotal. I'm just saying like, would I? Am I trying like? I don't think I'm compromising. Like in our relationship with my wife, I'm not like you know. I mean, of course, like I mean, we are never like absolutely free, even in any relationship, just period, because we can't do anything we want to do in any situation. But I feel like I'm not like taking away her freedom by being in a polyamorous relationship. I'm trying to think like because I think good to like allow your and that's another theme the Black Ponder is all about. Like freedom is like very important. It by just period because free choice is how we are able to do good in the world. We need the freedom to do good.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So yeah, I'm trying to think like but you're saying like, well, you shouldn't be free to harm somebody, right? Well, you should be free. You shouldn't by taking is free to. You shouldn't be free to take other people's freedom away, right? Uh, Freedom that takes other people's freedom away, like, is that freedom, right? That's a conversation in and of itself, but I would argue no, ultimately.
Yeah, of course. Again, when I say that Dossie writes that she's not willing to compromise her freedom, I'm not talking about freedom in general. Like I'm not saying that you should ever do the things that you want to do. If
Hmm.
you are in relationships where almost every situation, every problem that you face, you can come out of it without having to compromise any of your freedoms. That's great, but I think that you have to be open to the possibility that in some situations at least, there are some things that you may want to either slow down a little bit on them, or put them away or sacrifice them. Like uh, you cannot, as you said, you cannot be free all the time and do absolutely everything that you want. I'm just saying that there has to be situations where you're going to be faced with a realization that maybe your freedom is causing some justified harm. Okay, again, I'm not talking, like I said earlier, I'm not talking about when your freedom caused a harm, but that harm is just in the other person's mind. Like they can work around it, and there would be no need to compromise any kind of freedom. I'm talking about actions that are actually unjust, and that would require that you don't do them anymore, or that you would take a lot of precautions before doing them. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, those situations, they have to exist, right?
Yeah, I think the book addresses that. Now, just not in terms of the jealousy, right? It's like I guess the book argues like you can address those issues without jealousy. You can you can deal with like not harming. Yeah, you could. What you're saying can be dealt with, just not through jealousy. So
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
that's
see
it.
the
Again,
problem.
why not? Yeah, but why not? You see, that's the thing. I mean, when it comes to jealousy, right right off the bat, you throw it away. Like, the jealousy is only here so that we can cope with whatever false beliefs or insecurities you have in your head. Why when
Hmm.
like I said earlier, I have nothing against all the other solutions that they provide. The only problem I have is just with jealousy. That's
Yeah.
why whenever someone is jealous, it just means that there is something wrong with their worldview, not with the situation.
Uh, Yeah, I just yeah, I'm failing to like I'm trying to like really understand the problem. I try to so I'm just trying to think here. Uh, because yeah, I agree. I guess I feel like I'm just gonna repeat the same thing again. Like because because jealousy only results in pettiness, and just like ultimately anger only eventually it's just going to result in you throwing shit at people. But you disagree. You're saying like, well, no, actually, like jealousy can lead to compromise. I don't think so. Like when you're jealous, yeah, I get it. To me, it's like, well, is now it's anger management or emotional management is like you have these feelings of jealousy. Now you have to be like, okay, let me take a step back and be like, I need to like logically, reasonably think this through, and then you start like bringing your partner involved, and then now you're like not jealous anymore. But
Uh,
it's that
yeah, mhm,
yeah yeah, I'm
uh-huh.
at a loss
No, I
here.
think yeah. Okay. I think that the problem, okay, like with with exactly what you just said right now. Like when you feel jealous, you would take just a step back and reflect on the situation, and then you won't feel jealous anymore.
Well, no,
Uh,
you'll still you may still feel jealous, but you acknowledge like
mhm.
these emotions of jealousy. That's not how I'm gonna like productively solve this issue. Like if I just allow myself to just be in jealousy, like and just that's it, like this is gonna go south, right? Like so, but you're still maybe feeling those feelings, right? And they're valid. It's just like they're not useful. Is what they're only useful as like, but I guess they are useful in the sense that they allowed you to like, I'm hurt. Why? You know. But
Yeah,
and
but they also yeah, but I think they also reveal something objective about what just happened, or at least I mean sometimes they can. Just like I mean I'm sorry, just like anger. I mean when for example you look at civil rights movements, uh, I mean I don't think that all the social progress that we got only came because people when they were angry took a step back and were reflecting on those
you
emotions.
don't think so?
I think that those
I
emotions were also part of the process. You know,
Right, but they were part. They weren't all of it, right? If it
yeah, but
was,
yeah, sure, yeah, sure. But the book is saying that when there is jealousy, there cannot be any other part. Just like the Stoics say, when there is anger, there is no reason whatsoever. You know,
I don't know
but
if the
this
book
is the
is.
problem that I have. I mean, because of that definition that jealousy is always projecting a movie. It's always projecting a fantasy.
Well, it might not be
You
a
know,
fantasy. It might be a movie based off of a true story. Like, it might be a documentary. Right?
yeah. But then why would we say that it is completely irrational? For example,
Well, I don't think the book
why would
says
you
it's
say?
irrational.
Well, I mean, if you go with the premise that your emotions are part of you and you are solely responsible for those, and you can only deal with them through open communication, well, I mean, you can easily derive from that all right, so the open communication, that's the rational side, and the emotions, that's just the irrational. I mean, I cannot base anything on those emotions. I cannot have any epistemology based on my emotions.
I don't think you
You
could
know,
conclude that. But I mean, you can, but I think that would be incorrect. Again, I just go back to my relationship. I talk about my emotions with my wife all the time. But, we talk about
mm-hmm.
emotions and we're like, well, our emotions are based off of things that have happened to us in the past. And a lot of times that's how it happens is like you have these feelings and sometimes it does have relate to you're just like, oh, I got my somebody stepped on my toe, I'm angry. Like, it has nothing, very little to do with. It's just a natural response. But complex emotions like jealousy, where it's like,
Mhm.
you are like, oh, this actually has to do with, my parent in the past, like beating me or something, or like this has, I'll just use that example, or like, this has to do with my social conditioning. Like ever
Yeah.
since I was born, I was taught that to love somebody equates to possessing someone. So when I feel like
Okay.
I'm not possessing that person anymore, I get angry, right? So now you're like, so it does, so the jealousy, like current, like what I'm doing now, the jealousy is giving you objective descriptions of reality, like but it is internal. Like you could be internal and objective at the same time. I would say, and it's
Okay,
very
but
useful. Yeah. Hmm.
okay, but the problem, for example, with all of the examples that you took, like I think about my upbringing, I think about some of my social conditioning and all of that. Now, you can say that those things objectively happen to me, but in all of those things, that jealousy can be a window towards them. At no point you or I think and the authors at no point they would include that my partner did something bad among them, like my partner objectively did something bad among them.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
jealousy is just going it's just going to be about your upbringing, your false beliefs, your conditioning,
Okay.
your defense mechanisms, but it will never be about what your partner did.
Hmm. Yeah.
You see, and I don't see why you would exclude that last one, unless you are going to commit yourself to a view where your emotions are just irrational, and the only thing that we can do with them is just to acknowledge them, so that we would have peace within the relationship.
Right. Right.
You know.
Yeah, I guess we just have a fundamental disagreement. I'm seeing, like it's because yeah, like everything you said, like jealousy has everything to do with you and nothing to do with anybody else. Like I agree. Right?
Mhm.
And so like, what about the person that harmed you? Well, there are other tools to deal with that, which the book outlines, which you say you have a problem. You just feel like, well, jealousy actually can tell you about the other person. Whereas the book would argue, like, no, actually, it doesn't. And I guess I would agree with that. Like, jealousy really just doesn't clue you in on the intentions of, or the reality of what the other person is doing. Now, there's other. So I guess that's our fundamental disagreement, and it looks like we're just not going to budge on it. But
Well, I don't know. Would you like?
mhm,
I don't know. Would you say the same for all other emotions, or
pretty
is it just for
much,
jealousy?
particularly anger, I would say. Like, well, no, no. Um, Yeah. No, I would not say the same thing for all of the emotions. Now, but what is
Okay.
jealousy? Jealousy is not a single emotion, right? Jealousy can be anger, or it can be, well, usually jealousy is a combination or a set of emotions. So it's even, like I would say, even a false equivalency to equate jealousy with other emotions, right? Because jealousy is more
Okay.
complex
Well,
than a single
then
emotion.
then we can say the same thing with complex emotions. Would you, for example, say that all complex emotions don't reveal anything about the other person? They're just about you.
Yeah, or oh yeah, or like, yeah, I would say that, but and I guess we could go back to the single, the simple emotions. Yeah, because you
What?
can
Sorry.
you could like become a Buddhist, or like, a master or a Zen master, and completely control your emotions to the point where you just don't get angry anymore when you're getting harmed, right?
Yeah. Well, not really sure that would be wise
Yeah, that would be wise
today.
or useful. But I'm saying, like, you getting angry, whether or not you're angry. at the person, you know, does that reflect the fact that you've been like wronged? Or like, I mean, is your anger telling you, because you might not even be angry and you could be wronged, right? Is what it is. Or you could be
Right.
sad.
Yeah. Sure.
So I guess the question,
Sure.
emotions oftentimes don't reflect reality, right? Or sometimes they do. It depends. Like, so emotions reflect reality, but oftentimes they don't. So you need something else other than emotions to determine whether or not what you're feeling is a reflection of the external world. But if
Yeah.
you just
Okay.
rely just on emotion, you're not going to get, like, you just don't know, right? I mean, of course, you got your evolutionary biological, like, we
Sure.
have these things, and yeah, but that's like survival mechanisms, right? It doesn't deal with like complex societal issues. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Okay. So wait, because you said a lot of things. So first of all, you you agree with the statement that our emotions can reflect something about reality, depending on the context, depending on how you use them, depending on a lot of things. But can they?
Sure,
Okay.
I get. Yeah, they can.
Is
Yep.
jeal Can jealousy do that, or jealousy is one of the emotions that can never do that?
Uh, can jealousy do that? I don't think it can. I don't think it can.
How convenient.
Yeah. I'm just, I know how convenient, but it's not even like I'm not. I'm just really like hyper, like thinking about this. Like,
Yeah.
can it? Like, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, because if you say it cannot,
Yeah.
I would also need you to justify why other emotions can, for example. I mean, if you take love, for example, uh, when you feel love towards your wife,
Yeah.
does that reveal anything to you about the objective reality, about what's going on between the two of you,
Yeah,
or
because
not?
love is more than an emotion, right? I'm actually
All right, it's a complex emotion. Okay,
well, it's
all right,
action too. It's action too. It's not just
okay,
feelings, right? I'm actually reading this book
okay.
right
It's
now, all about
actions
love.
and feelings.
Yeah. So
Okay, so it is actions and it is a complex emotion and all of that.
yeah.
Okay,
So
and in that
what's?
case,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, and in that case, it reveals something about the reality of my relationship or the reality of the situation I am in. When it comes to jealousy, all of a sudden, it is a complex emotion, and obviously it's about actions,
Is it
but
though?
this one doesn't reveal. Yeah, I mean, it
Because
is
you
about
say
the actions of
obviously,
your
like
partner.
it's. Is it
Yeah,
obviously?
I
I
mean,
don't know.
yeah, I mean, when you get jealous, it is because of some actions. Just like when you are in love, it is also because of some actions. But why
Hmm.
in one case we would say that, yeah, it reveals something true about my relationship, but in the other case, it doesn't.
Well, not.
In no situation, in no context.
Yeah, because not everything applies to everything, right? It depending
Okay,
on
right.
differences exist, right? And just
Right,
because
okay,
something
okay, okay.
applies to one thing
I,
doesn't necessarily mean it applies to something else.
yeah, all right. I just want to understand why this doesn't apply to jealousy.
Right. Okay, so what we're talking, oh, love. So love and jealousy, two completely different things. So if we're just focused on jealousy, as the as the author describes jealousy, it is a project. Let me again use the so I don't accidentally go off topic. It may be that this is the only real definition of jealousy. It's the experience of projecting one's uncomfortable feelings onto one's partner. So that's what jealousy is as defined by this book.
Yeah, but the book doesn't explain why it is that way. Why is jealousy? Why would that definition fit for jealousy? I mean, if you are going to tell me that the difference is because the book defined jealousy in this way, you are either going to be begging the question or you are going to do a circular reasoning here.
Right. Well,
That wouldn't.
I mean, we could. I mean, yeah, like we were saying, there's like a whole chapter on jealousy, and we could like
Yeah, no, no.
we can read that chapter because it does go into like, okay, why is that the case, right?
Well, problem is it doesn't. I mean, through the whole chapter, I mean, they just take it for granted that jealousy is just that. I mean, they just defined it. Wow, projection, end of discussion. And they have, and the whole chapter about jealousy is actually about how you can deal with projection. At no point they explain why jealousy can only be defined as projection. You know, so
Well,
so
it. Oh,
it seems kind of arbitrary.
well, that's not the only thing they say about jealousy, right? They say all types of things about jealousy. Jealousy is an expression of insecurity. I'll just read a little bit. I'm not gonna read all of it.
Yeah,
A fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, feeling left out, not good enough,
yeah,
inadequate, or awful. Your jealousy may be
yeah,
based off of territoriality and competitiveness, or it's some other emotion that's clamoring. And, it just goes on and on. It talks about like,
yeah. I mean,
je-
I mean,
yeah, it's
all of those things are projection. All of
yeah,
those things are the false beliefs that they were refuting with their theory of abundance and love.
okay. So
So
what else do you think
uh,
jealousy is other than that?
okay, well, jealousy can just be, as I said, a reaction to an injustice.
Oh, okay,
It
so
can
that's how
be
you.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
it can be that. I mean I saw you did something that is wrong, and I am feeling jealous.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, of course, we can argue if whether or not there was something wrong, because again, like I said, in many cases there was nothing wrong and everything was in your head. I agree with that, but there has to be cases where where that anger or that jealousy was justified because there was actually something wrong done, because there was actually a villain,
Yeah. And
and
so I
like yeah,
guess I would just go back, rewind to where you first said, like, jealousy is just a reaction of when you're wronged, which is like, I just don't think that's what jealousy is. Right? But then you're like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, I don't really know. That's just, I just feel like what one of the commenters was saying is like, there's a difference. What is it? Uh, there's a difference between jealousy and just speaking the truth, right? When you just say like, this is wrong, right? And I protest. Like, that's not jealousy to me, but maybe to you, like, no, that's actually jealousy. Like, jealousy is when you like, you know, when that happens to you, and now you allow your, all the things that they're saying to drive you, right? Like, competitiveness, territoriality, inadequate feelings, but that's how they define it. So you're just like saying like, well, I don't agree with that definition, and that's fair. At that point, it's like, well, I can't really convince you. I mean, that's just how they define it, and I don't think it's convenient because I guess you're saying like, oh, that's so convenient that makes you know, eh, that makes the polyamorous person be able to like not address the core issue of like the wrongness. But I would disagree with that because there's other parts of the book that where they do address it. And I don't think their conception of jealousy negates those other parts of the book, right? Like, if you violate somebody's consent,
yeah, I think
it then you did something wrong, period. Like jealousy or that's irrelevant at that point, or if you like,
yeah, I mean
yeah.
I'm talking yeah, I'm specifically talking about the cases where there is jealousy. And again, I mean, in some situation, when you say, well, you have other ways to deal with the problem other than jealousy, well, I can I can ask, well, why? In all situations, I mean, jealousy can never be a way to address a situation in absolutely 100% of situations. Like
Yeah.
whenever I'm feeling jealous or my partner is feeling jealous, for example, do we have all the time have to go look for other tools to address the problem other than just admit that I did something wrong and well, I'm not going to do it again. And you are right to feel jealous. Why
Uh,
isn't that an option? Why in no scenario of what can happen between two or more people that line, okay, I did something wrong, I will never do it again. You are right to feel jealous. Why is that never an option?
I think it is an option, and I think now you've stepped
It's not.
outside of jealousy because, like, now it's the other
Again, but it's
person.
a
Like, you could even say, like, I feel jealous right now, and that has to do with me. And then you start talking to describing to your partner that this is why I feel jealous, and then the other person is like, okay, like, that's I've messed up, so I'm not gonna do that again. But that's not jealousy, right? Now you've stepped outside
why?
jealousy. Jealousy is
Why?
like not even like you're not like jealousy has nothing to do with open communication, right? That's not what jealousy as the book divides it. Like, so that would be your tool, like open communication,
Again,
because
that's yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah, but again,
in
why?
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
But yeah, sorry. Why is open communication uh, irreconcilable with jealousy? I don't see why, unless it's just because of the way they defined it, which seems pretty arbitrary.
It's okay.
You
Well,
know,
I don't know.
I don't, I don't see why jealousy would be incompatible with an open communication. I think you can do both.
Can
Yeah,
you?
sure, you're gonna have to work it through. I know. I'm not saying that whenever you feel jealous, go with the flow. I never said that.
Hmm.
I never said don't have any restraints, don't have any sense of reality or whatever. Don't have an open mind. Just let yourself be taken away with the jealousy, and whatever happens at the end, you, you're gonna be the one who's right because you stick to your principle or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that you can have that open communication with jealousy. You can work it through and not necessarily having to dismiss jealousy altogether as just a matter of false perception.
Yeah, I
I
guess.
mean, when you are jealous, you can still talk like a normal person.
Right. I guess
you
my
can, you can still talk like a normal person.
yeah, no, it's true. But I guess my argument would be like I don't think the book recommends you dismiss jealousy, nor do I think the book is saying that it's talking about false perceptions. I think the book says like jealousy, you see true perceptions and perceptions that are meaningful and objective. And I also think like the book is arguing like that's a problem. The problem is that we dismiss jealousy and we don't like examine it, and we don't like think
Yeah, but
about it for what it
yeah.
really is, right? Which
Okay,
is
so
yeah.
just to clarify, whenever I say that jealousy, we dismiss it. Uh, I I don't mean that whenever someone is jealous, you don't listen to them. The book right when they tell you that, well, when your partner feels jealous, well, you can have to put up with it. Okay, but the problem is that the way you put up with it is always going to be you have to just help him or her cope with whatever it is going on in their head and just make them see that whatever it is that you are doing is not that bad.
I don't think the book is
That
saying that.
that Yeah, I mean it is saying that.
Where does it say
But it
that?
is saying that nothing. For example, they say that you cannot deal with jealousy when you make people wrong. Well, that applies to both people.
You can't make
I mean,
jealousy.
for example, you can never say that uh, when you are jealous, for example, you can never say that the other is wrong. And yeah, I mean, you can say that the other person cannot say that the jealous person is wrong,
Oh, I
but
see. I see. Yeah.
whatever it is that they are going to say, it reveals just that they are hurt, and you have to care for them. But in no way you have to not do whatever it is that you are going to do and what triggered the jealousy in the first place. You know,
Mm.
the book never puts the ethical slut in the position of maybe I fucked up and maybe I should stop doing this. You know, that option never seems to come up.
Based
And so
off
it's
of
always,
jealousy. Just the jealous. Yeah.
yeah, based off jealousy. Because I mean, when you have a whole chapter for that emotion, complex or not, specifically, it means that that's kind of emotion that is going to come up many times in polyamorous circles.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not an emotion that randomly comes once or twice a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, something that is recurrent. And so I don't think that just trying to convince the jealous person that whatever it is that they are experiencing, even though it is valid in the sense that we acknowledge our feeling, not valid in the sense that, yeah, those feelings do reveal something about the situation, and yeah, I did something bad. Sorry, I won't do it again. Your jealousy is justified. That that is off the table. That line is just off the table.
Well,
And so you can dismiss jealousy even though technically you're not dismissing it.
yeah.
You see what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think we're also missing like um, you could be there's invalid reasons to be jealous of somebody, right? Uh, and so when somebody
Yeah,
says
sure.
I'm jealous, like that doesn't necessarily be like, oh, I did something wrong. Oftentimes that's like, now, no, that's your bad. It's like you have to. So, you first when somebody says you're jealous and you hurt me, you have to be like, okay, like why or how? Like, I mean, of course, and sometimes it is valid. A lot of times it's not valid. So you have to have that conversation of where does your jealousy come from? Like, where is it?
Yeah,
Because yeah,
totally. I totally agree.
so
Yeah, I totally agree.
and that's where you like you kind of step outside of jealousy at that point and be like, okay, so the reason why you're jealous is because this, and this. Now we gotta use other tools, right, to deal with whether that's open communication, setting boundaries, establishing consent, and all the other stuff they talk about. So I guess yeah, so that's the other thing is like, just jealousy is not always valid, right? Oftentimes it's not valid.
Yeah, again, I agree.
Hmm.
I mean, again, I agree with that. I mean, sometimes and many times, jealousy is not valid because indeed jealousy would fit this definition that it is just projection. I mean, many times I agree this is valid. I am talking about the other times when
Hmm.
jealousy was valid. And even though we can say those stuff are a minority, I think uh, they are a bigger minority than we would think.
Right.
So I think that there are many cases, even though they're small compared to the many times jealousy was invalid. I think it's still a big number to consider, and I think uh, in many situations, jealousy was valid.
But
Doesn't mean that you can let yourself go with the feeling and everything goes, but I don't think that it is a projection every time it occurs.
okay. Yeah, I'm failing to figure out examples where it is valid. So let's say it is, like you used the other example. I hate to still use the kid, but I guess that's the one. Uh, the movie. I'll try to use another example. the yeah,
I mean,
like
sure. I mean, sure.
the kid. Well, we'll just stick with the kid. Like the kid sees he's jealous of his older brother because he's getting all the attention, right? That's
Mhm.
reasonable that he thinks that. But okay, so now he's jealous. So what now? It's like, so now how do we remedy this situation? Now the kid can tell that I'm jealous. No, that's not going to remedy. Like, the kid can make a statement and be like, "This is not fair." But then that now to me that's
Mhm.
like, okay, now you're not jealous anymore. Like, you're not, jealousy is not what's
I don't.
driving you. It's a sense of injustice, right? That's which is not the same thing as jealousy. Right? It's like, you
I don't
might
think
have the
that you
sense
have
of
to.
injustice and this the feelings of bitterness, envy, all these other emotions, but still that sense of injustice, which is righteous, like that's good. And to me, like that's not jealousy, right? But maybe I guess you would disagree with that.
Yeah, because I don't see any reason why you paint these two things radically exclusive to one another. I don't see why when you want to argue for your case, once you start making statements and trying to explain the situation rationally or objectively or whatever, I don't see why that would automatically take you out of jealousy, or you would say that, well, that's not jealousy anymore.
Yeah,
I don't
because
see why.
you're
I
getting
don't see
out of
why
your
those two can.
because you're getting out of your emotions, right? Now you're like being, like you're saying, you're being objective, right? You're starting to be like, okay, I'm making a case, right? As opposed to,
Okay, so yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay, so you would paint these two things together that opposed to each other. So, like whenever someone is talking objectively, all of a sudden it is not there are no emotions involved whatsoever, and I
well,
don't think that's true.
yeah, okay, or they might be still involved, but two things can be happening at the same. Two different things can be happening at the same time. I guess that, yeah. I think we're, to me it's like now we're just splitting hairs. It is like, which is fine. I just feel like, yeah. So I think you kind of define your dis the way we diverge is like when you say, when you talk about anger, and then it's interesting you talk about, immediately you go to like the kid throwing, and yeah, that's kind of like how I think about the world is like emotions ultimately will drive you toward, if you don't like manage them and use other tools, like they will like drive you to extreme situations which are not useful.
Mhm.
But I guess some people would say like, no, actually, like emotions can like are useful, because they can, you know you can use them to righteousness. But I guess I would say like, well, then you're like, you're not just using your emotion anymore. You're using other, the emotion isn't driving you, you are driving the emotion, which so, and that's different. Like, you're separate from the emotion at that point, right? Like, and so I would say the same thing with jealousy. Is like, jealousy is like, it's bad when you allow jealousy to drive you, but when it's like, when you are the driver of emotion, then honestly, at that point, is like, with things like emotion, it's kind of, jealousy to me is like pettiness, or like, the very negative emotions, like,
Yeah,
bitterness, which are like, they're not useful, or like, bad temper. They like, not only are you the driver, you're like, get the hell out of my car. I don't want to see, like, now I got the wheel and I'm gonna like take control of this situation. But that's the way I see it. But I don't. I feel like we, yeah, we're just gonna be splitting
it's kind of
hairs.
weird. Yeah,
Hmm.
but it's kind of weird if you say that that jealousy is, one of the negative emotions that
Yeah.
that are not useful, and you want to throw them away, and at the same time you would say that we have to acknowledge them. But
Yeah.
again, you acknowledge them only as useless feelings. You acknowledge them only as things that have to be thrown away. And
Hmm.
that's the same thing as dismissing.
Well, no, it's not. Dismissing is like, well, I guess it is the same thing. So I guess not just dismiss, like, I guess there's a difference between dismissing, ignoring straight up, because a lot of people will be like, well, I'm not jealous. I love you, right? Or they'll equate love with jealousy or something like that. Or like, this is righteous jealousy. It is like, no. It's
Yeah, yeah.
like,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, it is important to acknowledge, because you got to acknowledge really horrible things that happen in the world. A lot of the world's problems are caused by not acknowledging evil things. And yeah, it's all like what they're saying. Don't the authors are saying, you don't dismiss jealousy, like, because these useless things, they constantly are creep up at they're always reoccurring. So you always have to be aware and like be on guard, right? Like, uh oh, here it comes again.
Yeah.
But if you just
Okay.
like don't acknowledge them as useless, right? Then I guess, yeah, I guess again we're kind of like, but that's important. It's important to talk about definitions, for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess what I mean is there are things that are useless that just keep occurring, and you have to like be on guard, and like when they show up you can't just ignore them and be like, oh, I'm just gonna let these things just be as they are. You'd be like, oh, no, 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 that's that useless thing that happened again that keeps coming, and I have to like be cognizant that it's always there and take control.
Okay.
uh,
Okay. But again, this is a very narrow definition of taking control. I mean, here, apparently, taking control means that I'm not going to let these particular bad emotions decide for me.
yeah,
Okay,
that's narrow.
okay. Still, I don't see why those emotions would be a projection, even though you don't want them. I mean, you can say that jealousy, when out of control, is a projection. You can make it as some sort of degrees.
Hmm.
Like there is a jealousy and you are still in control and everything's fine, and you can argue about the situation that your jealousy revealed to you. But then you can say, well, past a certain point, your jealousy, I mean, becomes a projection. But then you wouldn't be dismissing all of jealousy together. You would just be dismissing it as excessive jealousy or uncontrollable jealousy. But I think you can control your jealousy without saying it is just a projection. I mean, you
Without
can be
projection.
right about a situation that is unfair and it is causing you to be envious of the other person. You can be right.
Yeah. Let me use a real world example of I just just something I thought of during my younger days. I remember I used to date
Mhm.
this girl who was love was a game to her, and she would date me, and then like I was saying previously, I was friends with benefits, not serious, but then she would like date other guys, and kind of like just weird situation where I'd go to like a bar or like a nightclub or something, and she would be there with some other guy and look at me and kind of like basically try and make me jealous essentially. And I would get jealous at, I mean, I was like 19, 20 or something like that. And
Mhm.
I would get jealous, right? And and then I would be like, I would like try harder to get with this person, because I was
Mhm.
jealous, right? Uh, Eventually, I learned like, okay, I'm gonna like, what is this all about? What is this all about? Why am I? And it was just this back and forth toxic game that we were playing. And then like then I realized like what's going on here? Like, okay, this girl is fucked up because she's like trying to manipulate my feelings, But why am I
Yeah.
even letting this girl manipulate my feelings? Like, why do I have to pursue her even though she's like flaunting other guys with me? Like, what is it about me that
Mhm.
is like making me want to be with? And then I realized like, oh, this is just like it's just some weird ass possessive, like I have to like own this person, or like this is my object that I'm using to love. And so like after a while I was like, yeah, I'm just not gonna let this bother me anymore, and like I'm just gonna break up with this girl or
Mhm.
like I not even break up because we wasn't in a serious relationship. I'm just not gonna be involved with this person anymore. And she was like, hey, you want to go? I'm like, nah, I'm not trying to be with you anymore. I'm not trying to play these games. And so like to me
Okay.
that's an example of like, okay, I'm jealous, back up,
Mhm.
as opposed to like, okay, I'm just gonna let my jealousy ride. I'm gonna go out with other girls. Right, and then we
Yeah.
just gotta go back and forth with this stupid game, as opposed to like, you know what? I think what this is telling me about myself is like I have this weird obsession with like exclusivity. Like that's not valid. Like I don't find that. I ultimately like I think this is valid. Like, oh, I need to. That's what it means to be with somebody, is to be exclusive. Which, if other people feel that way, that's fine. But that was like that's not the way I roll. So that told me about myself. And now I learned, I'm like, okay, that's what the jealousy was, the window that showed me, oh, this is my. Now I'm not gonna allow her to like, cause she can do whatever the hell she wants. Like, she hurt me, absolutely, she hurt me, but that's on her now. Like, I'm not gonna be involved with her anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think like that's what the author is. They're talking about that kind of thing, right? Or instead
Mhm.
of like,
Yeah.
I've pulled myself outside the emotion of jealousy, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be jealous anymore. like, and the jealousy is like
Mhm.
motivating me to like do weird shit, like go out with other girls and use them as tools to like make other like I gotta get outside of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to me, like that's what the book is more talking about.
Mhm. Yeah. That makes sense, and obviously it works. But you can also do something else. For example, um, in that situation, well, I've been jealous too, and sometimes, well, here's what happens with my jealousy. Well, so this is before I was open to polyamory and all of that, but I wouldn't take it as, I was possessing the other person. I was seeing the other person as my object. What I was seeing, however, is, look, this person. I mean, she would uh, go flirt with other guys, for example, stuff like that. So again, this was when I was younger too. So she would go and see some other guys, and I would I would feel jealous because I'd be like, it's not fair. She should be doing whatever it is that she's doing with the other with uh, with me, because I don't see why you would have to go look for other people to for those things. I mean, it would also mean a lot to me, for example, if I see that you are more devoted or committed to me than other people, even though I know that there is love everywhere. I mean, again, the thing about abundance doesn't mean that we can go around and have sex with a lot of people either. You know, uh, I mean, because sometimes you don't care if there is abundance of love or not. You just want to be cherished, appreciated, recognized by the other person. And you can say, well, there are ways to give you that, or stuff like that. But what if they're not? What if they're not? What if there is something specific that I want, and that would give me, the satisfaction that, for example, I would deserve, or stuff like that. And you are giving it to someone else when you know that you can give it to me, your partner, the person that who should count more, at least. And so I would get jealous, and I would confront my partner, and tell them, look, this is how I'm feeling, and what you are doing is kind of wrong, and I want you to stop doing that because it makes me feel insignificant, it makes me feel all of those things, etc., etc. Now, my partner can just simply, try to dismiss those in any ways that she wants, hoping that it would make me see that what she is doing is not bad, it's not a bad thing, it's not wrong. But as long as I still see something that is wrong, uh, it will only make me more angry, and rightfully, because you are talking about someone else. For me, that's the thing that I consider wrong. That's the thing that is wrong for me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and you refusing to acknowledge that, that's the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if you refuse to acknowledge this, like to accept that this particular thing is, what would make me feel insignificant, would make me feel abandoned, or whatever it is, all of those things of scarcity economics that, again, you can still have even in abundance. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if she continues, well, I would say, well, not worth it anymore. But it was my jealousy that showed me that she is not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It was my jealousy that showed me that she is not willing to compromise something that would be very significant to me, right? And that wouldn't at all hinder on her integrity, for example, or the things that she holds dear. And again, if she is not willing to compromise that, I mean, okay, it's her right, but I don't have to stay in the relationship either.
Right, right.
But all of those things can be revealed to me through my jealousy.
Yep.
Okay, I I just I just I just don't have to lose it. I just don't have to start shouting and screaming and breaking up things. But it is still jealousy all the way through. Even though I'm being composed, even though I'm being reasonable, it is jealousy that is still driving me to to go look for arguments, to go look for an open discussion and all of that. And my jealousy is right about my partner doing something wrong, even if in the absolute way her flirting with someone else is not wrong. If you want to go look for absolute morality or absolute ethics, objectively that's not wrong. But when it is your partner who tells you that, well, I mean, don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
and you still continue, and at no point you are willing to see that maybe that's wrong. Okay, this is also a problem, because at the end of the conversation, I can realize that, well, there was nothing to be jealous about, there was nothing to be wrong about, there was nothing wrong in the first place. Like, at the end of the conversation, I could have been the one who changed his perception about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But she, on the other hand, was not willing to gamble that. She, on the other hand, wasn't willing to gamble that, well, maybe I fucked up.
Yep.
Maybe my boyfriend is right, and that I shouldn't have been doing those things. So I think that even with jealousy, you can still have an open communication, and you can still, uh, make a case, argue, communicate without all the frenzy or the mania, you know. So, and without the projection.
Well,
So yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Jealousy is the window that showed you your needs. And I would just say, like, the problem is she disrespected your boundaries, and it's like, well, it's But I was just reading when you were saying it. Disempowering your jealousy is a section, and jealousy is not a cancer that you can cut out. It is part of you, a way that you express fear and hurt. Okay, that's what you fear and you are hurt,
Mhm.
and we can do
Yeah.
what you can do is change the way you experience jealousy. So, and learn to deal with it as you learn to deal with any emotion. Work with it until it becomes not overwhelming, as you said. You didn't blow up. You worked with it, and not exactly pleasant but tolerable, a warm summer shower rather than a typhoon. So your jealousy was more like a warm summer shower. Right? And yeah, so I just feel like that's what this is like. It's a window to show you like, okay, this person is hurting me, and now you're even disempowering your because you're like, and I think the issue was the boundaries that you set. She disrespected, and I mean another thing I disagree. I personally don't think like all people are like humanity as a whole is evolutionarily inclined toward polyamory. I think if we're talking about sexuality, it's a spectrum, and different people fall within those lines. Some people are polyamorous, and maybe your ex might have been like one of those people who might not have been polyamorous, but maybe more on the spectrum of, I think I'm actually one of those people who are more aligned the monogamous because when I, because my wife has said, oh, you can go out with anybody. But I feel weird, right? And I think that's just like part of my sexuality. Like, and I think monogamy, polyamory are like part of this spectrum, just like all like gender and like all these other aspects of a human being. Some people are just naturally monogamous. Like they just like I just want to be one person, and that's just their nature. There's some people who are like asexual, so there's some asexual people who are like, I don't want to be with anybody, and that's just my nature. Like I don't want to have no romantic. I have friends who are like that. Like they've been involved with some people and they've never been happy, and then they finally like, I need to just stop being with people, and now they're like super happy, right? They're like for years now. So it's not everybody's polyamorous, but I think like for you, maybe it was like you were just with a person that didn't respect or I mean, maybe, yeah, I don't know your situation, but I think sometimes people have to have a conversation. It's like, okay, I'm the kind of person who I need you to just be the one. Like, exclusivity to me is like not necessarily a bad thing. Is if both people
Mhm.
agree and it's fine. Yeah, I think that actually works for a lot of people. But the problem is that's the only, our society considers that only valid. So the people can't who are unhappy in that kind of situation, then things start happening like cheating and affairs. It's like, well, maybe if you're more open, but and that conversation might have had to have happened with you and your ex, but she did mess you up because she didn't even acknowledge like she's hurting you. Like you don't want that in a relationship, which is totally valid. And so for me, like that's like open communication, that's setting boundaries, and that's all these other healthy things. But I mean, is the jealousy it's for me personally, like the way I see it, which I mean now we're talking about feelings and stuff, so it's like everybody's feelings are what it I mean your how you felt is how you felt, right? Uh, but I feel like the problem was like your boundaries were crossed, and it's like the jealousy like showed you like how those cross boundaries, how they specifically hurt you. But you were like, I'm
Mhm.
I'm gonna set the boundary now, and so to me like now you're outside jealousy. I mean initially jealousy was at play there, but I think eventually you kind of got out of that, or maybe you didn't. I don't know, but but, that's how I see it. Like jealousy can play this initial role, but like the book is saying, you gotta like not let it drive you, or like you gotta even disempower it, where it becomes like the warm summer shower rather than this typhoon. Because if
Yeah,
you don't keep jealousy in check, it will become this typhoon. But I don't think it's saying like jealousy
yeah.
is not useful in any well, in terms of like it's only useful for you to see yourself, right? Or see what, okay, this is how I roll. But when it comes to like dealing with the outside world, yeah, that's where you kind of diverge. It's like, well, actually, but I'm like, well, no, actually, setting in your situation the set boundaries was like the way you had to deal with that external situation. But I don't know.
Yeah, well, again, when the book is telling you that you have to control your jealousy so that it's just a summer shower and it's not the heavy typhoon.
Hmm.
Um, Again, no problem with that. My only problem is that when they say that jealousy is just something that you have to go through without expecting your partner to fix anything. This is my problem. Like the partner doesn't
Where do they
have
say
to.
that again?
Uh, well,
I
I
missed
don't.
that
I know
part.
because I don't have the book.
Oh yeah, that's
I
right.
don't. I don't have the book in front of me, but I mean I used a PDF version,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I don't know in what folder I stuffed it.
Yeah.
Uh, so I cannot give you the page, but later on I can go look for it, and I will tell you that there are some passages where they tell you that there's nothing to be fixed because there is nothing that is broken or something like that. Um, there are passages where they explicitly, and I showed them in my videos when I was going through the book,
Yeah, I
um,
remember.
where yeah, the only thing that you can do with your jealousy is just to wait, to be patient, to tough it up, and stuff like that. But in no way can expect your partner to fix something, to fix the situation, because there was no wrongdoing. This is something that they say. That when it comes to jealousy cannot be a reaction to a wrongdoing. It can just be, you making a movie in your head, whether because it is from your upbringing, or maybe it's because of the culture, or maybe it's because of scarcity economics or whatever, but it is never about what your partner did.
Hmm.
And that's my problem. I don't think that's true. I think it is true in many cases, but I think in a lot of other cases, well, that's not true. Your jealousy is because of what your partner did, and you were right about seeing that thing uh, as a wrongdoing. There were situations where there was a villain, and the best way to solve them is to admit that you did something wrong, and you work through with your partner to see how you can avoid that that situation in the future, or stuff like that. And if you cannot work it through, well, that's it, end of the relationship. Uh, but the credit goes to jealousy. That jealousy revealed that there was something wrong, objectively wrong, in the relationship, that your partner did something wrong, and they, on their part, failed to take up their accountability. I mean, the book goes through many lenses talking about how you should be responsible for your emotions, but it doesn't really address the responsibility of your partner when it comes to jealousy, except that they have to listen to you, and that's it. They don't have to fix anything.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a valid point. Yeah, no, I just, yeah. Hmm. I, yeah, personally, I agree with that, but you disagree. I don't think there's anything I could say further that would sway your opinion about that. But yeah, I
Oh, it's
actually
fine.
agree with that. Like, I
It's
think,
fine.
in terms of like the other person, like you can't control the other person's emotions. Like, so at that point, you got to be like, hey, like these are my boundaries, and if you can't follow them, then I guess we can't be together. And yeah, and if they're like, I can't deal with this, and it's like, okay, then bye. Uh, and I think that's about
Yeah,
as
but
far as you can get, like, in terms of like, you can't, in terms of like, yeah.
yeah, well, I would just yeah, I would just add that when you want to have an open communication, you have to be also willing uh, to risk compromising some of your freedom. Uh,
Hmm.
and and I think that when you frame jealousy as essentially possessing another person, well, it becomes very easy to dismiss it or discard it. You know, because if every time that I get jealous and I would tell you that you did something wrong, it portrays me as someone who wants to control you, who wants to possess you, who wants to see you as an object, which again most most people don't. Even the jealous people. I mean, when you
Well,
something very funny in the book is when they say that when your partner tells you that you are jealous, you have to admit it. And I I don't think that you can force someone to admit something if they know what you are going to do with that confession. Let's say if when I admit that I am jealous, for you it means that I am trying to possess you, I am trying to see you as an object. And so whenever I tell you that you did something wrong, you would just throw at me, hey, I'm not an object. You cannot control me. Well, I would say that's pretty convenient,
well,
you
I
know.
mean, that's it's more complicated. I mean, now I mean, we can go dive into the realm of feminism, where it's like, so it's a bit more complicated to that, where it's like, you know, was it like feminist theory? It's about like are raised, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Mm,
So our
yeah,
society conditions us to possess, like love. It equates love to possession, and so jealousy is like an offshoot of that. So you are possessing somebody subconsciously. You don't even realize it. But feminine, like true feminist theory would argue like that's not your fault. Like you are not at fault for doing that. Because you've been conditioned the day you were born that that is the case. The only thing you could do is, kind of like similar to like the theories of anti-racism, where it's like everybody is
yeah,
racist, and it's not anybody's fault that you're racist. It's just the society has conditioned you to deal. So the best that you can do is like admit when it happens, and but it's not your fault. It's like you now you start acting to address the issue. So when you say like I'm jealous and the other person is like, oh, you're trying to control me, like that's actually, if you follow the logic of feminist argument, and the ethical slut is quite feminist, although they kind of like
mm,
they don't dive into that because that's a whole other thing. So when you say like I'm jealous and you're like the anti-feminist thing to do would be say like, oh, you're trying to possess me. What you should say is like, well, jealousy is rooted in the idea of like domination and and that kind of thing, and patriarchy and such. And we've all raised under this condition, so it's not your fault, but you're falling into that trap. So let's try to deal with, and then you can go further and say, well, I'm not trying to possess you, and then you can be like, well, really, is that? I mean, let's dive into that. But that would be like
yeah.
that would be dependent on the situation, and that's a long ass conversation. I mean, it would depend. Sometimes that ultimately is, even if you don't realize that that's happening, you are doing that. But sometimes it's not. So it would depend.
Okay. Well, I mean, I mean, you can say, I mean, for example, if I am with a partner and my partner gets jealous all of a sudden, and I would be like, I mean, I know it's kind of the culture. I mean, it's not your fault. You're not doing it on purpose. We're not doing it on purpose to be buying into these power relation and this domination and all of that. She can just easily tell me, you know what, you're right, and that would be a great discussion for another time. But for now, I am pointing that you did a big move. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that? And then, if you want, tomorrow we will sit and you can teach me everything about domination and how it is, constructing my unconscious. And I mean, can we not divert? Because it seems like you are trying to divert it. And
Well,
I
if
mean, she can't tell me that. If she tells me that, it's kind of checkmate.
no, it's
It
not.
is kind of checkmate.
She could
Yeah, I mean it is
if
because
she
everything that I'm going to say, everything that I'm going to say is just going to be seen as me trying to avoid responsibility and accountability.
well,
That I'm
she's
just going
wrong
to
at that
go
point.
try into. Hmm?
Well, she's
Well,
wrong,
I don't know.
and I would
Well, I don't know.
argue. Oh,
I'm sure you can think of people who would do that specifically to get to get out of situations.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can think of people like that.
right.
And so,
I
what's the guarantee? What's the guarantee that I'm not one of those people?
yeah, yeah. But the people I'm thinking of that would do that, I would say like you're wrong, and then I would go further and say like because I know feminists who will do that, and I'll be like, you're not a feminist. You're like because you're being like the the magic word for today, dismissive of like I feel hurt and we need to talk about this like and you can't just be like, oh, you're trying to possess me. Like, no, it's more complicated than that, right? And I would argue like the ethical slut acknowledges that because it goes into lots of pages about but then again we have to say like it's beyond jealousy, so, which makes this debate kind of difficult because it does talk about these things in other chapters, but just not jealousy. Where it's like, yeah, I just don't think the ethical side advocates that position of, ultimately, when you're jealous, you are. They're saying like that is actually what's happening, but there's not this quick out that you can take, right? There's not like you have to like have a deep conversation with your partner and be like, why are you jealous? And if they refuse to have that conversation and acknowledge like they hurt you and they violated your boundaries or they violated your consent or violated your your expectations, then the ethical slut is not for that, right? Right? They would say like,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's
I
an
know, I know, I
unethical
know.
slut, right?
Yeah, I know, but if you want, I mean, if your solution is, well, if you break an agreement, you're not an ethical slut. Like that's not that's not the solution. I mean, if I ask, for example, what would happen when someone uh, breaks an agreement because they talk a lot about agreements. What would happen if someone breaks an agreement? I'm jealous. Now my feelings of jealousy now they have to be, justified at least in here.
Yeah.
Well, here they just say, well, if your partner break the agreement, they're not ethical slut. Okay, but that doesn't tell me at all how to deal with that situation there.
Well, there's
You
not
know,
much to
I
do.
mean,
It's like,
all of the
hmm oh,
all of a sudden, I mean, they were given all of these great tips for all kinds of situations, and then all of a sudden, when an agreement breaks, there's nothing to do there except, well, they're not supposed to do that because we're ethical sluts. But now,
yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like, all right, relationship over. Like it depends. Like sometimes you do have to like nip the head in the butt because it's like, dude, you don't respect me. So it's like, I mean, we could talk about this a little, but if you're not willing to like go deep into this discussion, like we got to end this relationship. I'm sorry, you know. Yeah. And I mean, that's where I think you're going towards. Like they have no response to that. Like their response is like, you need to get out of that like that relationship is just not working, right? Now, and I think that's a lot of the problems in our we try and beat these dead horses. Like these relationships aren't really working because these two are two different people with separate expectations of how they think the relationship should be. And it's like you can't be in a relationship like that and think it's going to be make you happy. So I mean, is there a solution? The solution is ending the relationship, unfortunately.
okay, but if I end the relationship because he or she broke the agreement, and that made me jealous, is my jealousy misleading here? Is it also projection here?
Yeah, it could be, but projection is not necessarily bad, right? Jealousy is just telling you about yourself, and it's a warm summer shower, so
Yeah. So,
you know,
so again, if you tell me that jealousy is not bad because it is telling you something about yourself, that's not my point. I want to find a situation in which jealousy tells me about the exterior situation and not about myself.
right,
And
and
so I ask the situation, when an agreement is broken. If an agreement is broken and I feel jealous, is it again about me, or is it also about the external situation?
Yeah, and the book, as well as myself, would argue like it's about you. And external situation, that's other chapters in the book. Now, I see you don't agree with that, and that's fine. But yeah, I would say if you're jealous about a situation, it's about you. Jealousy is ultimately about you, and it really does tells you very little about the outside world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, that's a very convenient definition.
Yeah, but I would say it's
Maybe
not
it's
so convenient because that I just think you're like not including all the other aspects of the book that assert all types of responsibility to the other partner who harmed you, and like you're hyper focused on the jealousy part, but it's like, but what about all these other parts of the book that actually, like all the situations that you're examples that you're talking about, you can use the other chapters in the book to like, to say like, yeah, they actually did hurt you, and these are the things that we're gonna that you can use to, so I guess, ultimately the book is arguing like jealousy is not a useful tool to address problems in a relationship. There are many other more better tools that you can use. So it's not like this convenient way out, right? It's like, if an ethical slut says like, okay, you're jealous, but it's fine, let's just move on. It's like that's not what the book is. I mean, that's, it goes further into detail about other ways to address those issues. Yeah, I just don't see the convenient way
well,
out. I I
well,
would say
actually,
to the like, oh, I guess you only read the chapter about jealousy and you didn't read all the other parts of the ethical slut, right? It,
no,
that's what I would.
I did, but I did, and like I said in both of my videos, I agree with all of the other ways and tools
Right.
that they offer. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that I think that when you look at jealousy as essentially projecting, all the other tools, I think, would only work if both parties agree on that definition.
Yeah, that's true. So if the other party does not agree, then it's like, okay, this relationship is just not going to work. Like, we're not going to be in a successfully polyamorous relationship if you don't. Which I tend to I would agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, you can you can dodge that bullet by saying that, well, maybe, but just by saying that jealousy can be a projection, but here are some tips to do when jealousy is not a projection and that jealousy is justified. Here's what you do. If you have another definition of jealousy, here's what you can do. There wouldn't have been a problem. But because they define jealousy as projection and only as projection, if you are confronted with someone who has another definition of jealousy, a more inclusive definition of jealousy, you're gonna hit the wall.
Yep, yep, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't. Yeah, personally, I don't see a problem. Yeah, if somebody has another definition of jealousy other than this, for me, I'd be like, yeah, I guess we're probably not going to be good romantically. Like, it just ain't going to work with us. Uh, and that's my boundary. And I guess I have no problem with accepting that. But you're saying like, yeah, that's not how I roll, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay if you don't want to be with someone who has another definition of jealousy. I'm just saying that if the book is saying that it wants for everybody to experience, an abundance of love and many other ways, to have fruitful and meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Uh, I think when you are committed to that view, well, you also have to include the people who didn't agree on your definition of jealousy. Because I think you are perfectly capable of having polygamy, polyamory, and many other forms of relationships without sticking to this only definition of jealousy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess that's another where we diverge. I don't think so. I think if you have that strong of an attachment to jealousy, it's going to be very difficult for you to find happiness. I don't, and I think the book is arguing that. Like, yeah, if you,
I don't. No, I don't think so.
yeah,
I don't
if
think
you
so.
don't think
If
so too.
that's if that's true, I mean, I think most people are not following the ethical slot model because again,
No,
as the ethical slot model says, well, we're not in the kind of culture in which these practices would be widespread, which
and
is a
that's
shame.
that's why
Uh,
most
but
relationships fail, and most relationships in this world are with people who are not happy.
well, well, I'm not sure that you can just that you can just give credit to people being unhappy in relationship just because they don't share this definition of jealousy.
Hmm.
I mean, surely people who are very happy together, but they don't think that jealousy is just a projection. If you tell me there cannot be two people or more people who are happy together and they don't see jealousy as a projection, if you tell me that's impossible, I would say that's kind of a big claim that would need a lot of evidence.
Yeah, not. You could. It's hard to say that about anything impossible. I would say like it's much easier for you to be in a which I you disagree with. It's much easier for you to find happiness with a partner if you both share that definition of that jealousy than it would be with the traditional, the definition that we're taught as children. It's harder at that point to find it. I would say, but of course
Well,
you
I don't know if,
disagree.
if you want to talk about the definition that we had as children. As children, we always heard that jealousy is bad.
Hmm. Right, but we also equate jealousy to love, and we say like, when somebody's jealous of somebody, it's like, oh, that's so cute. They love that person, or it's very toxic. It's like, somebody like, oh, I see that my partner's with, maybe they're with somebody else and they're not even with, in romantically, they just kind of are next to them. And you see this in sitcoms all the time where it's like the partner like starts getting like, oh, I hope my wife isn't cheating on me because I see her more than attractive guy. I'm jealous, and then the sitcom ends is like, I'm not jealous. Like, oh, and I didn't know you loved me that much, right? And so like we're taught like, uh, you know, really it's like exclusivity or this possession is like, or this desire to like, you are the one and only, and me, only me can like have access to you, right? That's what we're taught as children. Like, it's valid, and jealousy in that sense can be good, but I would say like that's why there's a lot of problems in our society because like that kind of corrupt definition of love. But I don't know.
But I don't I don't think that people equate jealousy to love. I think for many people, jealousy is part of love. It's a way to show your affection to someone, and again, the authors are right about addressing those issues. I mean, when you have many people who think that love is about possession, I mean, I would give them the book. I would give them the book. No, no
Mhm.
problem. No problem with that.
But just skip
I'm just
chapter 15 on jealousy. Skip that part. You would say.
no, actually, I would. I mean, if I see that someone is being possessive, I would give them a book and I would tell him to read only the chapter on jealousy.
Okay.
I would tell him, don't bother with the rest. Your problem is right there. You are too possessive. But uh, but I'm talking about people who don't necessarily see jealousy as possession, you know. But as I said, about about me uh, undergoing a dick move from my partner, and I would like my partner not to do that anymore. Now, of course, if I on the other hand, I'm the jealous person, and if I start that conversation, that communication uh, with the goal that I am right about this situation, that in no way I can be wrong. Now, that's not the kind of thing that I would endorse. Just like I said, that when you want an open communication, the ethical slot has on their side have to accept that maybe at the end of the conversation they will have to compromise their freedom, and so it also works for the jealous person. The jealous person has to enter the conversation with the risk of maybe at the end they will realize that there was nothing to be jealous about, you know. But but the problem that I have is that the authors are portraying an open communication uh, with an already decided outcome. That's kind of my problem, and I think that outcome was decided because of the definition that they gave about jealousy. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, if jealousy is just a projection, then yeah, any open conversation and communication cannot cannot end with you saying, okay, I did something wrong, I wouldn't do it again, and you're right to be jealous.
I would disagree and say like my jealousy is a projection. Um, and then you're like, okay, what are you projecting? You're like, well, when you do this type of thing, it brings back, emotions of past traumas or something like that. And then the partner, if they care, they could be like, you know what? I'm very sorry about that, or like I need to like hold off on that because if this is like bringing you, making you relive past traumas, or like, or I can like not do it as much, or if that to be that's what the ethical slut is advocating toward. But if the partner is just like this just projection, I don't care. It's like then to me that's like saying like you don't give a damn. I don't think the ethical slut is advocating for that. They're just saying like jealousy only communicates the internal. Now your lover should care about what's happening in the internal. Like they should care about that. So if you're communicating to you, this is how I feel, and this is you make me feel this way because of things that have happened to me. And if they saying like I end the discussion, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like it's not just about like let's talk about our feelings. It's about like okay, let's do something about this, which the other chapters talk about. But yeah, I guess yeah, there it is. But I do agree. Like I'm just going in circles now. Like jealousy. It's all about you, and it's like you can communicate. Okay, by you doing this, it makes me feel this way, right? And at that point, it's like, do you care or do you not care? And like, and if it's clear the partner is like, I don't care. It's just a projection. And it's like you need to disengage. I just don't see that the argument that's stated. I didn't read that, but I guess you read something different. I mean, we read the same. We have different interpretations.
Well, well, I don't know. You said that you watched the two videos that I made,
Yeah,
so I think that I made it pretty clear that you can use the codes of the ethical slot to get away from a lot of situations in which you were in the wrong.
I don't
I mean,
think
just
so.
like
I,
I
I,
mean,
I did.
because when your partner, for example, tells you that you did something wrong and now they are feeling jealous and all of that. Well, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that compels you to change your behavior.
In the other
Nothing
chapters,
would
it
compel you.
does, right? I don't know. I just
No,
don't
it
think you
doesn't.
could use that and just isolate this chapter and be like, this is what the ethical slut is saying. Is like you have to take
No,
this in consideration of all the other chapters that talk all about that, right? And I don't
Perfect,
think
perfect.
the unethical slut can say like can just be like your jealousy just because it's only about you doesn't mean anything to me. Like, but what about
No,
like
no,
the
but
chapter on boundaries, and the chapter on
yeah, I
consent,
mean,
the
like,
chapter on like
I
all the
know,
rest of the
I
stuff?
know. Yeah, there's I know, I know. And even in the chapter on consent, they put a lot of emphasis on it. But
Yeah.
I never said that the ethical slut doesn't care about your jealousy.
Okay.
And as I said, it's just that the way that they want to care about it
Hmm.
is not necessarily going to satisfy the jealous person. You know, the way that they care about the jealousy is, like I said, just a way to help you cope with it.
Right. Right. That's true.
That's what it boils down to. You just cope with your jealousy,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's kind of the problem. You know,
Yes.
I mean, it means that whenever I am the one who feels jealous,
Yes.
I'm the one who has to do the exercises. You
Hmm.
know, you on the other hand, your exercises are just going to be about being more patient with me. You
Well,
know,
isn't
in no way your exercises, your practices are going to to guarantee that maybe you will acknowledge that you did something wrong. You know, it's
hmm.
always about just coping, never about fixing. You know, it's like fixing is just up to the two people whether they want to fix something or not.
Yeah.
But all of the practices are just about coping with the emotion. They just take it as completely internal, and all the other exercises that they propose, again, as I said, wouldn't work if one of the two parties does not agree that jealousy is just a projection. I mean, even when you care, I mean, like the parents, for example. Let's go back to the kids. They care about about their kids, but the jealous kid would be like, you know what, Dad? I know that you care, but you really suck at caring.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So that's uh, that's the issue.
Yeah.
That I know that you care. I know that you don't want to neglect or dismiss or say mean things or ignore my jealousy. I know that you want to care, but my jealousy is not just something that I have to cope with. It's also showing me rightfully that you are also in the wrong. And your responsibility doesn't just stop at just making me cope.
Right. And so yeah, I just feel like the ethical slut. You just that sounds to me like you're saying it. Just the ethical slut is just saying it stops and ends at jealousy. It's like no. It's like okay, I feel jealous because this, and this. Okay, now that we've got the jealousy straight, now let's get down to like okay, the kid. Like I didn't give you the equal care that I gave the other person, the other sibling. That's the dad's bad, and that has nothing to do with jealousy. I mean, you've learned, that the kid feels jealous. Now you got the warm, soothing storm or whatever, and now it's up to the dad to be like, okay, like I need to step up. And the ethical slut says that it's you're just not going to do that through jealousy, right? Is what the ethical slut is advocating toward. But the dad still has responsibility to do care. It's just is not through jealousy. But I just disagree with like is this easy out for the person that's wrong, or the person that wrong does not have to acknowledge that they did something wrong. I didn't see that from the book based off of, and I do see that with the chapter on jealousy, but I agree. Like jealousy is, for the most part, kind of toxic, and I, I do think that, and I feel like when the kid is like saying to you like, I feel jealous because you are like not showing me equal love. Like, okay, that's not jealousy anymore. Like that's just, the kid is just telling you the truth right now. You're out.
Yeah, but
This
what?
isn't an
It's not.
issue of jealousy anymore. This is an issue of like good parenting at that point. In fact, the jealousy
Wait,
was the
wait. So,
window. Yeah.
so wait. So for you, you cannot say the truth when you are jealous.
No, sometimes the jealousy gives you the window to state your truth. Like sometimes, like I said, like projections
Okay, but
are not always false. They're true. They're true projections. It's just you can't just end there, right? You have to like once the truth is out there, right? Now you have to like go beyond jealousy and you have to do other things like good parenting, for instance, or like it just doesn't end at jealousy. Like if you continue to just be in jealousy, right? You're not going to go anywhere, right? That I guess that's what they're saying. You need other tools.
okay, but if the parent is now showing better care,
Hmm.
they did acknowledge that they were doing something wrong because now they're changed their behavior.
Yes.
Okay, so there was something wrong. The kid was right when he said, "This is unfair. You should treat me like you treat my brother."
Hmm. Hmm.
The kid was right.
Yeah.
Okay, the model of the ethical thought would say that the kid was wrong.
I, I failed to see that.
I well, because the father can spend all his energy trying to show to the kid that he is not favoring any one of them. The father can spend all his energy telling his jealous son that he got it wrong, that he didn't understand what the father was doing. The father can just tell him, I acknowledge how you are feeling. I understand that you are upset. Okay, but I love you both the same way.
Hmm.
But
But
at the end, the father is not compelled to change his behavior.
right, but the ethical slut is not advocating that. It's not saying you should just stop there, right? Yeah, I guess like yeah. I feel like but I mean I saw your videos and you've seen the whole thing. It's just the way you're talking is just like, did you only read chapter 15? Because uh of course like it would like you need to like that there if you any other chapter would talk like no like that's not acceptable just not at chapter 15, but the ethical slut is not arguing that jealousy is the end all be or like it is not arguing like that's a way out. That is just saying like that's just you. But yeah,
No,
it is
they're not saying that that's a way out. I'm just saying that that is an implication that can happen without contradicting the book. I'm
contradicting
not
the
saying
book.
that's their intention. I'm not saying that's their gameplay. I'm saying
Yeah.
that you can use those techniques to get out of jail without
Not
contradicting the book.
not when you consider the rest of the chapters. If you just like,
Okay, like for example, what?
oh, okay, let me just go to another chapter. Like, go to chapter one. Let's see, because I let me not. If I'm always using the consent and
Mhm.
what is it the boundaries, which maybe I will use that. Let's see if I can use something that's new. Okay, I'll just use. Yeah, I mean, there's chapter 14, child rearing. Yeah, chapter 14.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Let me get more. I hate. Well, I mean, they could take their time. I think that's the chapter right after. No, that's the chapter before.
Mhm.
Okay. yeah, now I'm gonna get specific, but I mean, I don't want to spend all the time. But there's definitely like a part in chapter 14, child rearing, where you can barely see that, where it just talks about how like the children their needs need to be put first, and you're modeling your behavior. It talks about how you need to model, like children will look at you and then they'll model your behavior off of what you do. So it's very important
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
show good examples of love, where it's like so they don't copy negative parts of they don't misinterpret negative aspects of what you're doing as something that's love. And that would be one thing. Like what I mean, really, what
Yeah,
is
but
when the father is doing that, when it's like, oh, that's nice, you're jealous, but I'm actually not showing you unequal attention. Like what's that? That's like gaslighting. And that's like
yeah,
manip
definitely.
yeah, but and so you're
No, but I mean,
modeling
look,
that. Hmm. Yeah,
go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, that's all types of things. And there's, I mean, there's a whole chapter on that where it's like you are your kids' lovers, right? And so when you're lovers of kids, yeah, basically
Yeah,
just to
but
summarize the
yeah, but the chapter of childbearing is basically applying the same ethics, but towards the kids. It doesn't solve the issue. You can still, you use the word gaslight, for example. You can still gaslight your kids using techniques of the ethical slut.
right. But when you're gaslighting, you're not loving. Um,
That's I think there are a lot of people who gaslight without even knowing it.
right.
I think people I think people guess a lot of people gaslight while thinking that they're not gaslighting.
And so you could apply that to the jealousy thing, where it's like, oh, I'm actually doing good, and you're not realizing, like, no, you're actually, when you're jealous, is like you're not being productive, but you think you're being productive, right? But yeah, like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
gas.
I
Yeah.
mean, totally. I mean, totally. I mean, like I said, I'm talking about the cases in which you are right to be jealous. You know, in the cases of gaslighting, I mean, in the case of gaslighting, you can either be malevolent or ignorant. But when it comes to jealousy, you can be ignorant, you can be malevolent, but you can also be good willing and truthful.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that would be
Like
it.
something
Hmm.
something like gaslighting, I would agree you have only those two options.
Yeah.
But in the case of jealousy, I don't see why you should limit yourself to those two.
Yeah, I guess I would.
I think you can be loving, caring, rational, uh,
Hmm.
and thoughtful and caring and saying truth while you are jealous.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, so I guess that would be like a fundamental disagreement, where it's like, yeah, I equate gaslighting to jealousy. Like to me, that they're equally as bad. Even gaslighting can tell you things about yourself when you're doing. I guess any emotion can do that. Uh, I guess I will just go to the boundaries, because I mean that's an important chapter, right? Uh, yeah, and so
Yeah, I mean, they
like
go.
when we're talking
Yeah.
about the child who's being gaslighted by the dad, and the child is telling you like I feel hurt, right? And so like they're setting their boundaries right there, and if you're not acknowledging like like why do you feel hurt, like you're talking, if you're just like flat out like, oh, you're actually not hurt, right? Like that's a violation of boundaries, right, which the ethical slut is
No,
all
the
about.
father. Yeah, well, no, the father can still gaslight you while acknowledging your boundary. Your father can tell you, I respect you, kid. I respect you, kid. I respect your boundaries. I see that you are in pain. I'm sorry that you are in pain, but you're gonna have to tough it up.
But you're not. But the father is doing nothing about it. So they continue to cross the boundary,
yeah,
right? So they're not respecting the
yeah,
boundary. They're not
well,
even.
actually,
They're just saying. I
no,
mean, you could say something and just not. I mean, it's kind of like it's like that. I mean, that's what gaslighting is. It's pretending that you acknowledge something or like making something up when. But that's not
no, I
acknowledging the
don't.
boundary. That's just like saying like, oh, okay, there it is, but you continue to violate it. Like that's not acknowledgement. That's just you
Yeah, okay,
just
but
or that
okay, for example, if
Oh, go ahead.
okay, for example, if you have a father or a mother who
Mm,
is very caring about her kids, and they see there is an issue. Okay, there is a problem, and they kind of know that they cannot address it without somehow hurting the feelings of their child.
mm-hmm.
Like there's going to be a case where, well, in this case, in this particular case, kid, I'm gonna have to step a little bit over your boundaries because I mean this is a serious situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that situation, using the model of the ethical slot, well, the parent would be in the wrong, even though there is a dire situation that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
The kid can still use what the exercises of the ethical slot to tell, for example, the parents that no, they're the ones who need to do some meditation, for example, about their things, not them. And the
Mm-hmm.
kid can be like, I can guide you through it. You know, I can show you, you know, all the great things that you can have if you just, you know, give up on whatever it is that you just told me. You know, and I know what it is coming from, and I understand, and all of that, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is, you can still jungle with those things and get something and get out. You know, get something out of it, even though it wasn't your intention.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'll
so
respond.
that's
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I was just going to say that I don't, I'm not making an intention trial to the authors. Uh, I'm not saying that they don't have the best intentions or whatever, or that they are manipulative or anything like that. I'm
Right.
just saying
Right.
that you can use these techniques in a manipulative way without contradicting the book.
Yeah. Well, I still disagree, but but you could. I mean, you could use anything really. You can manipulate basically anything. Any ideology can be
True,
manipulated to.
true,
Uh,
true, 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 true.
uh,
But for me,
mhm.
I think it is important that whomever comes up with an idea, with a book, with an ideology, and all of that includes, you know, its own limits. You know, like they have to be aware of the ways in which their ideas can be used in a manipulative way without contradicting the ideology. You know, like they have to admit that there is this risk. You can do all of these things, and yet somehow we cannot exclude you from the category of an ethical slut.
Mm-mm.
You know, like you can do bad things, and god damn it, you still fit. You still fit as an ethical slut.
Yeah. I don't know, but let
You know?
me acknowledge we got I think you are Zoltor the
Yeah, yeah.
Magnificent. He says jealousy can alert one to unfairness and injustice, but can be highly damaging and shifting. So should be a transition or transit point, not the destination.
Like,
Which yeah, I think that's what you were
yeah, I
saying.
agree.
But
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, is this your argument? Is you it's a way out that it's not intentional that the authors is just somebody can use it as a way out. Um, Yeah,
And I would also say that you can use it as a way out without even knowing it. You can use it as a way out while thinking that you are using it in the right way, uh, thinking that you are an ethical slut.
yeah. I don't know about that. I
So
just don't. I don't. If you really like, of course, yeah, like you said, yeah, I do see like if somebody is really savvy and they're dealing with somebody who's like, um, who's just learning this from the beginning. Yeah, I'm sure, but I'm trying to think like how. And then the examples that you said with with somebody like Gaslight, you were saying like I don't think you can use the that to because like if the person is saying like you know and with the kid thing it's more like polyamory. I mean, this is more about romantic love, so we're talking
mhm.
about like just it's more just about boundaries, right? So it's like if the person is like, I feel this way because I set a boundary and you violated it and I'm jealous, and then the person's like, well, no, actually, like, or like, oh, I hear you that's bad. Go, you should work on that. I'm going to continue to violate your boundaries. The ethical slut, you can't use that framework because there's a whole chapter on respecting boundaries. So it's like, okay, the jealousy, like the jealous person needs to work on their jealousy, but the other person that made the harm, they have to work on respecting boundaries, as the ethical slut clearly says. So if they're not doing that, then this is not an ethical slut situation anymore.
Well,
Or
no, well, actually, it is. Actually, it is because the ethical slut, because of that damn definition of jealousy, can say that they didn't cross your boundaries.
really,
That
how?
you are just projecting. You are just projecting it.
But
That I didn't do
projecting is,
anything bad.
you did something bad. Like projection is not just some frivolous thing, right? Which the ethical slut does not say it's like some frivolous thing. It's a projection is very meaningful, and it can be true.
Well,
Like
at no point. Well, problem is at no point they make that claim.
yeah, it's I talk about the
At no point they say that the projection can have any truth value in it about the external situation.
well,
Only they
not
say
about the
that
external.
the only truth, yeah, the only truth situation is the only truth value that it has is about yourself, about your inner self,
Right.
never about the external situation.
Well, a boundary is about setting your things that you personally in yourself feel like you do not cross this with me, right? And so that's what a boundary is. It's like it's a limit based off of an internal situation going on within you, right?
Yeah,
And as somebody that's
that would be.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, as somebody who loves like a lover, like if like somebody who I love is saying like, look, don't watch horror movies with me because I experienced some crazy thing that happened to me in my child. I cannot watch horror films. Like don't I mean, in the horror field, like whatever's going on is just it reoccur makes something reoccur in their mind about some past trauma. So it's like okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and just watch this movie, and even if like let's say um, yeah, I mean, let's really ramp it up and say like,
Okay, I can give you an example
okay,
if you want. The problem is that you are giving giving boundaries that are pretty pretty sharp. Okay, it's about doing something very clear. Don't watch horror movies, or don't make me watch horror movies or stuff like that.
hmm
But what if the boundaries is something like, well, don't flirt with other people,
right.
or maybe don't flirt with that guy? What does it mean?
Well, that I mean, so you have the open communication where it's like, maybe the person saying like, okay, and you do this before you even get involved with the person romantically. You're like, okay, I have a boundary. You don't flirt with other people. And if you're like, and if like, you could either be like, hey, I'm not doing that. Like, that's just something I'm not doing. So it's like, all right, then we can't be in a relationship at this point, and that's just something that you just have to accept. Or uh, now, if you're saying like, okay, you don't flirt with other people, and inevitably you accidentally flirt with somebody, it's like, and you feel jealous, is like, okay, then we need to have a discussion about this, like, or like, is this a reasonable like expectation, or like, or did I really harm, you have to like start talking it over, which the ethical slut advocates for. Right? They don't just say like, oh, I flirted with somebody. Well, that's that's your thing, and I'm sorry, you're gonna have to work that out with yourself. But you do that, I'll continue flirting. It's like, no, the person clearly set a boundary, right? And if you can't honor that boundary, then the ethical
Okay.
slut to be like, you don't really need to be going out with this person.
Okay. The problem is that it requires that the person who doesn't want the partner to flirt knows exactly what they want, or they know exactly what kind of behavior will be seen as flirting
Right, right.
from the start.
Right. So
And
you
I
have to be
think
very
many,
clear about the communication. And you also have to set reasonable boundaries. That's the other thing. So the
yeah,
ethical
but
slut is about being very clear. And,
that's the problem. I don't think you can expect from people to be that clear.
mhm. Well, I
You
don't,
know,
I mean, it works in my polyamorous relationship. We have boundaries. And of course, sometimes I accidentally do something that violates those, but then we reconvene and we're like, hey, you did something that really it hurt me. I'm like, whoops, sorry about that. I hear you. I honor you. And, we talk about like, so what was it that I did? And like, is that something, maybe we need to work on that with you too. But of course, I'm also going to stop because I love the person. And it's like, so it's like you're working if the person really truly loves you, then they'll care. But I guess what I'm saying is like the ethical slut does have that point. They do make that point. It's like with the other chapters, with primarily
well,
consent
I don't.
and
Well,
boundaries.
oh, but I've never encountered something in the next chapter that would either would not be a contradiction with everything that they said. Like, for example, Dosti saying that she's not going to compromise her freedom no matter what, for example.
Hmm.
I mean, if on the one hand you say, I'm not going to compromise my freedom, but on the other, here are some tips about how to change your behavior. First of all, that's a contradiction.
Uh,
And
Not necessarily. I mean, you can free to do you can change your behavior to be well, first of all, you can change your behavior to be even enable more freedom, right? Maybe your behavior like limits your freedom, right? But but the other thing is like maybe I need to change my behavior to allow my partner to be more free, right? While also,
yeah, but then you are willing to compromise. Then you are willing to compromise your freedom.
I don't, are you though? I mean, you're still doing the same stuff. You're just behaving differently to do this thing. Are you?
Yeah, I mean, what if you have something that you should stop doing, and
Hmm.
you can see it as, well, this is not to allow me to be more free, or freer.
Right.
You know, it's and as I said, you cannot expect people to be that clear about what they want, about what they desire. Uh,
Yeah, I
that's
think.
one of the problems also with a too narrow definition of consent, for example. Uh, And yeah, I mean, if you for example talk about the beginner's mind, that concept in Buddhism, where you have to let go of everything that you know first. Well, obviously, I mean that would be contradictory with some statements in the ethical slot. First of
Hmm.
all, regarding jealousy, I mean, if you want to apply the beginner's mind, then you also have to gamble that maybe jealousy is not a projection,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So they're not perfect, and I also think like
Oh, it's fine.
you're not
It's
when
perfectly fine.
Dulcie is saying like I don't want to compromise my freedom. I don't think she's saying that in the absolute sense. I think she's saying that in the sense like my freedom to love,
Ranges of
right? I don't want to compromise my freedom to love, as opposed to like the absolute free. The way I interpret that, I don't think she's saying it that
Yeah.
way.
Well, even with that, even if you say that I don't want to compromise my freedom to love,
Hmm.
I mean that can be a misconception. She can be wrong about uh, about that statement. If, for example, I tell you, well, don't flirt with that particular person, and you take that as reducing your freedom to love, I don't think I
Yeah,
don't think that's true. I don't think if you give up on flirting with a particular person, I don't think that is going to reduce your uh, your freedom to love.
right.
After all, love is in abundance. So
Yeah.
you can you can find it in just your one partner.
Well, I mean that's another thing I would disagree with is just because is in abundance doesn't mean that it's all in one thing or one person, right? It's in abundance, but it's like it's in abundance because it's all over the place. It's not concentrated in one. So, but that's one of the issues is like that they argue
Oh well, I
is
mean it can be concentrated in two, your partner and you.
yeah, but it can or it cannot, right?
I mean there's
So it might not like
yeah,
right.
but I mean there's nothing. I mean there's nothing to prevent that.
Yeah, there is like most people are unable to provide like all. I mean, some people are, but sometimes you get that. When they talk about well, marriage is a compromise, right? Because like one person
All right, so
can provide. So that's one of the principles of polyamory is like this idea that one person can't provide for all of your needs, so you go to other people to do that. And that's where the abundance of love comes from. The concept of
mhm,
interconnectedness and like free love everywhere. Yeah.
okay. Still, if you say for example, I mean the the concept, the model of the ethical thought, as we agreed earlier, it's not very widespread. Now,
Hmm.
there's nothing that guarantees that if it is widespread, it will make everyone involved in it happy. Since the book itself says that there are some people who are not fit for this.
Yeah.
There are some people who are not fit for ethical slaughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so that would mean that if this becomes more widespread, it wouldn't guarantee that everyone will be happy in it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
Okay, but if the book is willing to say that if you do these practices, you will be happy in ethical slaughtered.
Yeah.
Well, then why can't we make practices to tell people you can be happy in monogamy with the theory of abundance?
I
It
mean,
works both ways.
yeah. So what was it? The first point was you can't. What was the first point? We're going about that. We're gonna. I have to end this soon, but uh, because we're going a
Yeah, I
lot of time.
mean,
But
I'm,
I'll talk to you
I'm
about
tired too.
those points because I'm starting to lose my
Go
thinking.
ahead, go ahead.
you said oh, it's not for everybody. It's not monogamy. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I guess the book argues like, well, just give it a shot. And then the book argues like, well, I think more people probably more people should do this and they will be happy. But not everybody, but more people than not even close to as much people would be happier following this advice. I agree with that.
Mhm.
And then you're also saying why not monogamy? And then some people can like be happy with monogamy, but some people
Yeah,
are,
I know, I know. They have that part in praise of monogamy.
yeah. But I don't know. What you thought about to me was I just had a thought of I'm into video games, and I have a lot of friends who are like they hate they don't like open world, those big huge games that like have these
Hmm.
giant worlds and you explore and it takes hours to beat. And I asked them why you don't like those games. They're great games. It's amazing. Like these are the games we dreamed of. And they're like, I don't want all that freedom. Like I just want to be told what to do. Like just tell me what to do. Just give me a set path and just let me do it. So not everybody wants like a huge amount of freedom. Some people are just happy just being confined, which is like that's cool too. Right. Uh, and so that's how I see it. It's like, well, most people do, or like many. Let's not use most. Many people would like that kind of freedom with their love, but then there are people who are like, look, I'm not trying to because it takes a lot of work, as the ethical slut is saying. Like
Yeah,
that kind of freedom, you gotta like really be like on it. And some people are like, I'll compromise my freedom to just like know that there will always be one person that I can go to that I love. Yeah, I can't do everything. Like I see that attractive girl over there or that attractive guy over there, and it's like I can't do that, but that's fine because I'm happy in my own little uh, nuclear family, whatever, and I'm good with that. Uh, so yeah, I think that's what he's saying. That's what they're saying. Is there any other chat?
yeah,
Whatever floats your boat is Zoltar the Magnificent. Yeah, but okay, that's cool. Yeah, we've been going 2 hours it seems, and that's a great discussion. But I
yeah,
do feel like
yeah.
maybe we're going in now. We're starting to go
Yeah.
in circles, but which is fine. And
It's okay as long as we're having fun.
yeah, we're having a good time. And it just goes to show you, like, um, sometimes both people can be right, or you know. So what is this like? Because there are polyamorous people or feminists who are like everybody should follow this. Like if everybody, like, no, like not everybody should, like this is not for everybody. And some people are gonna disagree with, like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
not my kind of relationship. And a lot of that is valid. It's like, look, that polyamory is not for me. And that's cool with me. And I think that's valid. I think so. I think Ishmael is kind of that, but he's more fundamental. Where I think we do just disagree with like the whole jealousy thing. Where yeah, we disagree with that. Where it's like I agree with the authors that they say like jealousy is just it's only about you, and if you want to like love productively, and you need to like go beyond jealousy and not let it drive, as opposed to like you're saying like no, jealousy has valid points, and you can use jealousy to do constructively love, right? Yeah, which yeah, I guess we disagree with that. I think yeah, we talked about that ad nauseum for the past 2 hours. So there's that, but I agree to disagree. But it definitely valid points there.
All right. Well, it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun, and even somebody in the chat was like, "Y'all should do more." Like, so whenever you want to get
Yeah.
together again, or if anybody else is watching and they want to like, maybe we could do like a 3 or 4 way. That would be cool. Uh, yeah, more the
Yeah. Why
merrier.
not? Why not?
hmm But yeah, I just want to. Yeah, so I
Now
guess
let me
we'll end
see chat.
here. just look at the chats a little bit more. Monogamy seems
Yeah.
common and natural, but not
It's common and
mandatory.
natural, but not mandatory and not for everyone. Well, I would actually say that monogamy. Sorry, it's polygamy that is, I think, more natural for us. Uh, and again, just for Zoltar the Magnificent, because I don't think that you were here when we started. Um, I just want to clarify that I am for polygamy. That my whole trouble with this book was just about how they defined jealousy, because I think that there are many cases where jealousy is not just a projection, but it is also telling you something right about a wrongdoing happening. That there are just situations in which there is a lot of hurt and there is a villain. Now, what to do in that situation? I don't recommend guilt. I don't recommend blame. I don't recommend losing yourself and be all righteous and making the other person feel bad just to have the pleasure of punishing the other person. Uh, I do think that you have to have an open communication. That when you go into an open communication, when you have to apply that whole beginner's mind uh, fully, and just like you take the chances of maybe at the end you realize that there was nothing to be jealous about. I think that at the end of the conversation, the other person should take the risk of maybe having to maybe change their views about jealousy, and accept that there are some things that they will have to give up, uh, that maybe they would have to compromise their freedom, uh, and so yeah, it's just about taking the risk.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Good talk. Started late. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's it. And we'll conclude it there. I just realized it's 3 hours. We've been talking for a long time. That was a long ass time, but that's good. But yeah,
Well, that means that we enjoyed this, and I hope
hmm
that the people in the chat also enjoyed this talk.
yeah. Okay, then. Yep. So I'll see y'all later. You've been watching the Black Ponder. Check out Ishmael's channel. I got a lot of nice philosophical stuff going on there. And
And
yeah.
you also gonna find some French content. I mean, I do both English and French, so just focus on the English if you are if you are not if you're not good at French. So,
Hmm.
but thank you.
Cool.
Just so that people don't get confused if they go watch my channel and they find a lot of French content.
Yeah. Mhm. I'll see you later, Nadia. Thank you for watching. Cool.
Well, thank you everybody. Thank you Nadia. Thank you Zoltar.
Hmm.
And well, I think we are going to call it a night.
Good night for you. Yep.
Yeah, a night for me. It's
Daytime
10 p.m.
still
over
for
here.
me. I'm
Yeah.
about
Well,
to.
over here it's 10 p.m. now.
Oh man. I'll let you get your sleep.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
All right. Bye bye.